East Coast versus West Coast, Gotham versus Hollywood, Magic Johnson versus Jerry Seinfeld. Citi Field is the site for the latest battle of the coasts. The 2015 NLDS created heroes for the Mets.
And there it goes! Daniel Murphy, a home run, has given the Mets the lead. Swung on and missed strike three. The New York Mets are going to the National League Championship Series.
And ended an era for the Dodgers. But exits for some means opportunities for others. Julio Urias makes his Major League debut as the first 19-year-old Dodger pitcher since Fernando Mania. LA hopes Julio can start his own craze tonight. Dodgers, Mets, coming up next with all your enhanced coverage on MLB+.
Summer temperatures have finally arrived here in New York City just in time for Memorial Day weekend as the Mets take some time to honor the 1986 World Series champs 30 years later this weekend. They also have their sights set on the 2016 October run. They take on the Dodgers in this one. Welcome into our MLB Plus studios. Tim McMaster here along with Mike Petriello, our MLB.com analyst, and Will Leach, our senior writer for Sports on Earth. It's going to be a great matchup. I mean, you look at the NLDS from a year ago, two teams that battled it out. The Mets, of course, turned out on top in that one, but the pitching matchup in this one got a little bit better on Thursday when we found out that Julio Urias would be making his Major League debut for the Dodgers. Let's take a look at the tail of the tape as it's Urias against Jacob deGrom. And when you look at the matchups, the numbers are kind of tricky here. AAA stats for Urias and deGrom, of course, the Major League stats. Urias, 19 years old. deGrom won the Rookie of the Year in the National League when he was 26 years old. So just think about that a little bit. But Will, when you look at this matchup and this young kid, just 19 years old, what are you most excited about?
Yeah, born in 1996. Like, that is absolutely insane. But the thing that's great, it's funny about him is, you know, he obviously he's got great stuff, but this is not a guy that throws like 100 mile an hour. You know, Zach Greinke actually pitched with him last year in Los Angeles and said that one of the things that was great about him and most exciting about him is actually it was his approach and the fact that he almost is less apt to get injured because he only throws in the mid-90s. He's got a curveball, he's got a changeup, and he's got that. He sits at 95. This is a guy that wins on approach already at 19. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, when you talk about 19, there's a lot of historical significance there, Mike. But what stands out the most to you?
It's really the age, right? I mean, we can come up with fun age tidbits and talk about them all night, and I'm sure we will. I mean, he's the youngest Dodger starting pitcher since 1963. He's the first 19-year-old to start a game in baseball since Felix Hernandez in 2005. As our friend Darren Willman just told us, Ichiro had 425 hits in Japan before Urias was even born. It's insane how young he is, and that makes it difficult because there's not really a lot of comparables. It's hard to look at what other guys have done and sort of compare him to that because, you know, as we said, Felix Hernandez, that was 11 years ago now. So what we're kind of in here is uncharted territory. So it's really fascinating to see what's going to happen tonight.
According to MLBpipeline.com, Urias, the number 2 prospect for the number 2 prospect in all of baseball, the number 1 prospect for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Jim Callis does a lot of the writing for MLBpipeline.com. Jim, what can we expect tonight from Julio Urias?
Yeah, I know Urias is only 19, but he's ready to pitch in the big leagues. 27 straight scoreless innings in AAA. He's got 3+ pitches. He's throwing more strikes than ever before, so I don't have any doubts he's ready to handle this challenge. I think he'll do very well against the Mets tonight. I don't think they're going to let him work deep into games because they've tried to manage his innings workload. I wouldn't expect him to go more than 5, maybe 6 innings, but there's no reason he shouldn't be up to the challenge. I think over the course of the season, no matter how well he pitches, I think they're going to cut him off at some point, at least in terms of the rotation. He's never pitched more than 88 innings in the season. He only pitched 80 last year. I don't think they're going to take him over 120, but I think that the prudent move might be at some point transition him to the bullpen and use him as a high-leverage weapon in the playoffs. They could really use another lefty in the bullpen, a quality lefty, and with 3+ pitches, he could be a factor for them in October.
And we'll be taking you throughout the game, of course, but it's not just us. We're also at the ballpark at Citi Field for this one. Lindsey Berra is there covering both sides of this matchup. We have Jesse Sanchez, our MLB.com national reporter. He spent some time with the Urias family around Citi Field. And then Anthony DiComo, our MLB.com Mets reporter, will be our roaming reporter around Citi Field. He'll give kind of a fan's eye view and tell us what the atmosphere is like around Citi Field. We also, though, want you to get involved with the broadcast. You can do that via Twitter and social media. Use the hashtag MLB+. Ashley Chavez will be joining us later in the show, and she'll be sharing some of your tweets and talking about the social media aspect of this game. But before we head out to Citi Field for the first pitch of this one, and it's going to be a good one, what exactly is StatCast? Take a look.
Several years of research and development were realized in 2014 with the debut of MLB.com's StatCast, the first ever reliable measurement of every play on a baseball field. Pioneered by MLB Advanced Media and debuted with prototypes at the 2014 All-Star Game, League Championship Series, and World Series, StatCast's roots can be traced back roughly a decade earlier to MLBAM's introduction of pitch tracking. Pitch tracking delivered a never-before-seen wealth of detailed information regarding every pitch thrown in the major leagues. Though a bold move at the time, today, pitch tracking technology is ubiquitous throughout broadcast television and baseball's digital products. But despite the data compiled on pitching, never before have there been reliable defensive statistics. The goal with StatCast was to leverage the technology to ensure that defense could be quantified and that a more complete picture of our game be made available to fans. To that end, all 30 ballparks have been outfitted with two distinctly different but collaborative technologies to allow for the data capture: optical tracking and radar tracking. High-definition video camera arrays spaced 15 meters apart to capture stereoscopic video, and a 3D Doppler radar system which captures 2,000 samples per second of the entire baseball field. By marrying the data from each of these systems, it is now possible to scientifically quantify the skills and talents of players on the field using new player performance metrics.
When the lights come on, everybody screaming, lighters in the sky, yeah, everybody singing, every word to every song of the girl that's taking home tonight. When the lights come on, everybody screaming, lighters in the sky, yeah, everybody singing, every word to every song of the girl that's taking home tonight. When the lights come on.
Thanks to Jason Aldean and Broken Bow Records. We'll have more from them throughout the summer. Nothing gets you fired up like that, though. That was some good stuff. Welcome in to MLB Plus, presented by T-Mobile, as we are about ready to go at Citi Field. It's the Dodgers and the Mets. You see 1986 plastered right on the field there. They're spending all weekend long celebrating that World Series championship team. But tonight, it's the 2006 editions, and taking the hill for the Mets, it'll be Jacob deGrom. And he's been good. He's been good this year, but he was better early in the season than he's been as of late. But nonetheless, he's become the ace of this Mets staff quickly over his first few years in the majors.
The funny thing about Jacob deGrom, right? If you take the temperature of Mets fans around Jacob deGrom, it's been a bit of panic, not quite in that Harvey level panic, but it's panic. However, Jacob deGrom, 3.07 ERA, right? He's still actually been pretty effective, not quite what he was last year, but a really, really good pitcher. And I think people are looking at it like, oh my God, the sky is falling. It's not quite like it is when that Harvey was hit.
It's funny how deGrom, Cy Young winner so recently, just a terrific pitcher, and he's like the third most interesting story tonight, of course, with Urias, and the guy that's about to come to the plate, as a matter of fact.
Okay, Chase Utley, we're going to talk about Chase Utley?
I think it's probably time to talk about
Now's the time.
Are you expecting deGrom to, let's just say, send a message? I really hope not. I really don't want to get into that.
Yeah, you and I will have a very long discussion about our thoughts on beanballs if this starts from the beginning.
And of course, that harkens us back to Game 2 of that National League Division Series a year ago. Chase Utley sliding into second base hard on Ruben Tejada, breaking his leg. Now we have the Utley rule. And of course, these teams did face each other earlier this year. They split a pair of games out west in Los Angeles. But sometimes when you're thinking about the retaliation or getting even, you want to do it on your own field. So this will be certainly an interesting thing. And maybe it's not tonight. I mean, we saw what happened with the Blue Jays and the Rangers. But let's take a look at the lineups for this one. For those Dodgers, and there you see it. Chase Utley leading things off, and it's Corey Seager, Justin Turner at third base, Adrian Gonzalez, Howie Kendrick, Jock Peterson, Yasiel Puig, Yasmani Grandal, and finally Julio Urias, the youngster, on the mound in this one. And when you look at that lineup, obviously always a wild card, Mike, Yasiel Puig.
Yeah, Yasiel Puig kind of having another rough season. He really got off to a great start. If you look at his first month of the season, he was crushing 100-mile-an-hour baseballs left and right, and he's been a huge struggle since then. We're going to get into his stats a little bit deeper, but the short version is he's going outside the strike zone for too many balls, and when he makes contact, he's popping up way too many balls.
Here's that first pitch, and it's outside, if anything, and it's ball one from DeGrom. So no chin music early on here to Utley.
Credit to Mike for getting through that segment while getting booed. That was very
well, you know,
you did that very well.
You know what? I live in Manhattan. I walk down the streets. It happens pretty much all the time.
And you know, the Mets fans, sure, they're upset about what happened in the playoffs last year, but they've disliked Chase Utley for a long time. He was very effective as a Phillies second baseman in Citi Field against the Mets.
Chase Utley's the kind of guy where if he was on your team, you'd love him. You know, he's a hard-nosed guy, he's gritty, he's tough, and of course he's always killing you and get with one of your biggest rivals and you hate him. But you know, you look at Chase Utley, and I think a lot of people look at him and go, way past his prime. You know, he's not nearly what he once was, and I think that's true to some extent. But if you look at his career marks, we like these weighted runs created plus, right? 123 is his career mark, 23 percentage points above average. His mark this year, 123. He's actually hitting his career marks this year, and I think it's pretty interesting for a guy who was basically written off for dead last year.
2-2 the count to Utley.
Yeah, you mentioned about Utley, Mets fans already not liking Utley. I think it's fair to say that it's not like when that play happened in the playoffs. They're like, oh, I thought we loved that. We knew that guy.
Now I don't.
We love that guy. Now I just don't even know anymore.
And of course, Ruben Tejada no longer on the Mets, and maybe that brings a little of the level of anger down. He's no longer on the roster. He's not in that clubhouse, but nonetheless, that was a big moment. But you can look at it this way. In a sense, the Mets already got their revenge. They won that series. They went on to the World Series.
I don't know if a Mets fan ever really quite gets the bloodlust. Satiated.
Well, I mean, listen, Mets fans are already wanting to shoot Matt Harvey into the sun about 10 minutes after wanting him to pitch in the ninth inning of the World Series. Things can turn quickly in this town.
Life comes at you fast.
So it's a full count now to Utley. Pitch coming from DeGrom, and he misses up high. So Utley works the walk to lead things off here for the Dodgers in the top of the first. And he came out there, and you talked through it a little bit, despite the heckling. It wasn't for you, Mike. It was for Chase Utley. Let's give a listen to how the fans at Citi Field greeted the Dodgers second baseman. Yeah, there's the booing. He didn't tip his cap to them either.
He did not.
Rude.
Drew a walk, so not a great start for DeGrom. But I think actually you can take something positive away from that because his issue has been velocity. His velocity has been down about 2 miles an hour across the board this year. Almost 96 average on his fastball last year, almost 94 this year. And you look at that first plate appearance against Utley, 94, 94, 96, 96, 94. That's a pretty good place to start off if you're DeGrom, especially if that's what you're concerned about.
So here's Corey Seager. We talk about Urias as being a big-time prospect, but Seager right there with him. I mean, he was the Dodgers' #1 prospect ahead of Urias now. He's up there in the big leagues, has been all year. 263 so far this year, 7 home runs for Seager. He actually had an RBI double off of DeGrom back when they met earlier in May 10th. And his career pretty good against DeGrom. 4 for 15, a double, a couple of walks.
Yeah, Seager didn't actually get called up last year until almost the second week of September. And then basically took the job away from Jimmy Rollins right then and there. Started most of the games in the playoffs. They came into this season, really fingers crossed that he would be the guy they expected him to be. And so far, so good. You could make an argument that he is the best hitting shortstop in baseball right now. And I know that sounds insane. When you think about all the talent that's at that position right now, young talent, he has outperformed just about everybody over his short career. So not the hugest sample size, admittedly. Great start for Corey Seager.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this as the night goes along, but they've really needed him this year. This is an offense that was a lot more consistent, top to bottom, than it was last year than it has been this year.
It's a really weird offense because if you think about the question marks they had coming into the offseason, what's Jock Peterson going to be? What's Corey Seager going to be? Who is Trace Thompson? Is Chase Utley dead? All 4 of those guys have performed pretty well, and the offense has still been underwhelming. It's been a very unexpected outcome.
Yeah, not coming exactly from where you would like it to, but they're hanging in there. Obviously, out in the West, they were neck and neck with the Giants until the last couple of weeks when San Francisco has kind of gone on a tear, so the Dodgers have fallen off a little bit. But certainly the talent is there.
We can go back to DeGrom for 1 second, Sam. We were talking about his velocity. One of those fastballs in the first at-bat, 96.2 miles an hour, his fastest pitch of the year. Off to a good start right away.
Pretty good atmosphere at the ballpark, maybe a little
It's also,
extra.
you know what? It's really hot tonight.
It is.
It's the hottest. The last couple of days have been really hot in New York, and I think every pitcher in the world will tell you when it gets hotter, they're going to throw a little bit harder.
And this is just inside. The fans wanted that one.
We talked about that last week with Matt Harvey. That was the thing. We were trying to give him the benefit of the doubt that it was cold, and once it warmed up, everything would get back better. Things have not improved for Matt Harvey since we talked to him last week.
We gave him every out. I think we said coming into the game, well, his outfield defense has not helped him out, and that happened. Conforto didn't help him out, Cespedes didn't help him out, but then he also was giving up rockets left and right, and he wasn't helping himself out either.
And that's going to go for a double play. They'll strike him out, throw him out. 3-2 base running for Chase Utley, and Utley's a guy who's pretty good when he goes into motion, right, Mike?
Chase Utley, in baseball history, which for this stat goes back to 1951, has the highest percentage of successful steals. He is the best, and obviously he's a little bit older now. It's not quite the same. Very good throw by the catcher there, and we're going to get some data on that in a second, but that's actually really impressive. 88% of the time he steals, he's successful. It's really hard to throw out Chase Utley. He's a very smart base runner.
To be fair, a lot of those stolen bases happened when Chase Utley was not in his late 30s.
Oh, well, that is.
And if he keeps running now, that percentage is going to get a lot lower.
We talked about this earlier off the air. That is an admitted flaw with career stats for anybody.
Yes.
Because anybody who has been doing something for 10 or 15 years is not the same person.
They're literally a different human being altogether.
So here's Justin Turner, the third baseman. It's been a tough start to the season for Turner. He's hitting just .238 thus far, 3 home runs. Career versus DeGrom, 5 for 14. He does have 3 doubles and an RBI.
We talked about the outfield defense with Harvey. It's worth knowing that tonight they have Lagares out in center field. I think that's one of the issues that really the Mets pitchers have had all year is the outfield defense, almost by design, was something that wasn't supposed to, that having Cespedes in center field, having Conforto in left. Tonight they put Lagares out there, probably a good call. You remember since he came up in 2013, he is 3rd in Major League Baseball in defensive runs saved, and I'm certainly DeGrom will appreciate having him out there tonight.
The Mets outfield is this interesting bunch of parts that don't really fit together. There's a lot of talent out there. Obviously, Cespedes has been an amazing hitter. Lagares is an amazing outfielder. Conforto has been hitting the ball very well, but then Conforto's not a great outfielder. Cespedes shouldn't really play center, but he can't play right. And then, Granderson, he has to play right because Conforto can't play right. And then Diaz's floating around there somewhere too. It's an island of misfit toys just in the construction because there's a lot of very good players that just don't really fit together in the way you'd like them to.
And there is strike 3. So DeGrom, after walking Chase Utley to start things off, certainly settles in nicely, strikes out Corey Seager, strikes out Justin Turner as well, and he gets a little help from his catcher on the strike him out, throw him out double play. Let's take a look at the rest of that defense. We mentioned Juan Lagares as you go around the rest of the outfield. Cespedes in left, Lagares in center, Curtis Granderson in right. Then around the infield, it's David Wright as Drupal Cabrera at short, back in the lineup. He actually left Wednesday's game, but he's back in there tonight. Neil Walker at second. Such a good start to the season for him. And Eric Campbell filling in for Lucas Duda at first. Kevin Plawecki behind the plate, and we saw what Kevin Plawecki can do defensively behind the plate with that throw on the strike him out, throw him out.
Yeah, he's actually got a slightly below average pop time, and for what does pop time mean? It means the time that's elapsed between the time that the ball hits the catcher's glove and the time that the ball hits the infielder's mitt. So it's not only getting rid of the ball quickly, it's throwing the ball hard. He's slightly below average there, but in that case, it was a good, strong, accurate throw. I think, Will, as you said, Chase Utley probably isn't the speedster he once was, and unfortunately, we don't have Statcast to go back to his prime and tell me how fast he was running in 2005 or so. But I think that's probably a fair assertion to make. So, really nice play by Plawecki.
It's funny you talk about the misfit toys in the outfield. One of the things the Mets had actually toyed around with was maybe with Duda being hurt, putting Conforto at first, and that kind of solves your problem a little bit. They seem to have abandoned that. In fact, I think Terry Collins' quote was like, "This is not like Little League where you can just put the fat kid out there." If I'm Mo Conforto, he looks like he's in pretty good shape to me. I don't know why he had to throw that out there, but I think that makes a certain amount of sense. As much as you'd like to get somebody over there at first, it doesn't really work that well in mid-season.
I will say this about Conforto. Sorry, Tim. Is that when he got drafted, he went to Brooklyn, low A Mets. That was at his first professional game, and he was a college guy, so he was older. But the sound coming off his bat was unreal compared to everybody else. And the fact that he was there for more than a week is kind of shocking. And obviously, he's come up. He's been a considerably above-average hitter.
All right, we mentioned that throw, the great defense from Kevin Plawecki. Let's take a look at that, our StatCast version powered by Amazon Web Services. It's the pitch from DeGrom.
That did not require an incredible throw.
No. And look at Chase Utley's slide here, right? See what happens? To the base.
He slid early.
Not beyond the base. He didn't slide at the base. That was kind of the issue last year. So clearly he had that in mind. After all, he has his own rule.
Obeying his rule,
He
you
would-
know, when
if
they
he
name
could,
it
he
after
would
you.
slide halfway through on a play like that where he's obviously out, just seed once he get closer.
And of all places, I mean, can you imagine if he had gone in there hard at Citi Field in the first game back? Here's a look at the 19-year-old phenom as we get back to things at Citi Field. Julio Urias, and we've talked a lot about him already, and he hasn't even thrown his first pitch yet in this game. But he made his pro debut when he was 16, 3 years ago, almost to the day to right now. His AAA numbers are kind of ridiculous so far this season. 27 straight scoreless innings before he got called up, and well, welcome to the majors as Curtis Granderson sends one down the right field line, and that'll be just foul. So it's a welcome to the majors moment where you get to exhale afterwards because it was just foul.
I mean, Granderson is nearly double his age.
You could say that about a lot of guys,
Yes.
including the ones in this room. Here's the thing about Urias. We don't have a ton of StatCast data on him yet because he's been in the minors. I can't tell you his spin rate or anything like that, although very excited to be able to do that after tonight's game. What we do know about him is he's got 3 pitches. He's got a fastball, a curveball, and a changeup. And every scouting report says they are all plus. The fastball is 91 and 94, but he can get up to 97 with it. He's got really good command of the curveball and the changeup. To have 3+ pitches from a lefty at this age is almost unheard of, and I think that's a huge reason why everybody's so excited.
And that's one of the things that Greinke was talking about. He emphasizes this was not a guy that's reliant on one pitch. He's not reliant on a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. He's able to do all of these things at such a young age. Not only does that make him a great pitcher now, but also theoretically would make him more durable as the year go along.
And you're absolutely right. A.J. Ellis, the Dodger catcher who's not playing tonight, he caught him in spring training last year, and he said he was really impressed because he always made a poor pitch, and the next pitch, most guys his age would come and try to throw it through a brick wall. He's like, and he didn't do it. You know, he kept command and he tried to put it exactly where he was supposed to, and it's just not something you see from a lot of guys his age.
You see the shift they have there on Granderson. Tends to pull the ball quite a bit. They're ready for it as the count stays full at 3-2. So Granderson's leading things off for the Mets. Let's take a look at the full lineup for New York. Asdrubal Cabrera in there at shortstop, David Wright batting third. Yoenis Cespedes cleanup, then it's Neil Walker, Juan Lagares out in center field, Kevin Plawecki, Eric Campbell, and Jacob deGrom. And Cespedes, as good as he was after this team, as Urias gets the punch out, and what a way to start a career, right? You get the strikeout, and we'll certainly get the numbers for that.
A called looking on a guy in his mid to late 30s has been in the league for a long time. Is maybe not the worst way to start for a night.
Well, that's something else that came up on all the scouting reports. This is very deceptive, right? The ball comes out of his hand. It's very hard to pick up. And, you know, I think that's exactly what happened to Granderson there. He might not have agreed with the call.
Not one to usually complain, though, Granderson. We saw that lineup, and when you think about this Mets lineup and how different it could be if Yoenis Cespedes doesn't decide to stay here, but this is his 100th game in a Mets uniform, and he's been so good.
They've been 100 very pleasant games. If you look at his stats, remember, you know, he was thought as a good trade deadline acquisition, someone that was going to help out the Mets. Nobody thought he was going to be this. Look at those numbers: 292, 354, 627 for the Mets after being 269, 317, 471. That is a dramatic difference.
If it's at all possible for somebody in New York to be underrated, I think that's Cespedes right now. Because if you combine all those numbers and you come out with an OPS plus or a weighted runs created plus, he's basically the best hitter in baseball right now behind David Ortiz and obviously Harper and Trout. But I'm just talking about performance for this year. And I remember when Cespedes had this great run last year, we were like, well, he's always been talented. He's always been kind of streaky. He's had these moments. He went through this road trip through Colorado and Philadelphia where he hit like 75 homers. That helped. He's going to be above average, but he's not going to be a superstar. And it turns out he's actually been a lot better than he was with the Mets last year, so far this year. It's unbelievable, and he's absolutely going to opt out of that contract at the end of the year.
Yeah, 100 games is no longer a streak.
It's not a small sample size. That one drilled to left, and that'll get over the head of Howie Kendrick. So Cabrera into second, and now Julio Urias has his first hit allowed in Major League Baseball, and it's a one-out double for Cabrera. So man on second, one down.
That was a hittable pitch.
That was a hittable pitch, and as we are starting to get the first looks at StatCast data on Julio Urias, so far his fastball spin rate has been above average. which I think makes some sense, because people talk about his deception. They talk about he throws hard. He's not like Noah Syndergaard out there. So if he's got high spin, that would probably lead to some movement, some swinging strikes. That kind of goes along with what we know about him. And as we see this come in, we'll get some more sample sizes. We'll be able to put some numbers to that.
So you saw Howie Kendrick trying to chase that one in left field. We'll get to that defensive alignment for the Dodgers in a minute. So batting third for the Mets, it's David Wright, the captain. Let's take a look at that first strikeout from Julio Urias.
I think Granderson thought that was a little high. Yeah, that's a full mile. That's a full mile an hour perceived velocity higher than actual velocity.
Yeah, well, you can see he's got a good extension and he's got a high spin. That goes exactly to the deception that hitters in the minors are talking about. Can I say this? The double there, not the worst thing in the world, because nobody wants. He's got a pitch count limit of 90 pitches tonight. Nobody wants him to get through the fourth inning, the fifth inning with a no-hitter going in his first start. We've been through this with the Dodgers and Dave Roberts and Ross Stripling earlier this year. His first start, was carrying a no-hitter late in the game, and he had to lift him, and it was the right call, absolutely. But that at least takes a little bit of the pressure off.
Not that we're hyping him too much, but we're just noting that it's like, hey, congratulations, you gave up a double, so now the no-hitter's off the table. not that we're hyping him.
And that StatCast was powered by Amazon Web Services. David Wright, another guy, the average not really there so far this season, 226, 6 homers, and the power has come lately, a couple of home runs in the last week.
Well, Will, since you were worried about us overhyping Urias, I do have a almost negative Urias stat for you. I wouldn't say negative. I would say a forewarning stat, right? Last year, he dominated at 3 different levels and then went up to his 4th level of AAA. At the end of the year, 2 starts in AAA, 4.1 innings, 9 earned runs, 17 base runners. Even someone as highly hyped as him can go to a new level and struggle for a bit. And I'm not saying that's going to happen tonight, but it is certainly possible.
I'm going to bring him back up and say Trout struggled when he started in the majors too.
Yeah, nobody remembers that.
Came back around. Everyone's kind of forgotten about that.
That first month of the season, Trout was up. He didn't really do that much.
Yeah, sometimes takes a little bit of time to adjust as you look in at our T-Mobile Greater Coverage Cam. And that one will almost come right at the T-Mobile Greater Coverage Cam, and Cabrera will trot down to third base. Little jitters there, maybe.
He didn't slip at all. That's a little moment where Citi Field's. Now he knows he's pitching in New York right now. It's probably the best way to put that.
Way up high, no chance for Grandal. Here's another look at that pitch that got away.
Spin rate on that almost 2450 RPM. Major League average last year on that pitch was about 2200. So that's considerably above average. That could help with the movement up.
And he comes back, though, and 2-2 pitch. He gets the strikeout of David Wright, so 2 down. Let's take a look at the defense for the Dodgers. Kendrick out in left, and it's Jock Peterson in center, Yasiel Puig in right. Around the infield, Justin Turner at third, Corey Seager at shortstop, Chase Utley at second, Adrian Gonzalez at first, and Yasmani Grandal behind the plate. And Grandal's a guy that struggled to get back after an injury as far as at the plate, but he's still very good defensively.
Yeah, Grandal came over in that trade for Matt Kemp, which looked like a total steal for the Dodgers because Kemp has struggled, and Grandal in the first half of last year out-hit Buster Posey, his first catching, which is impressive. Early August, he took a foul tip off his shoulder in Philadelphia, and really ever since then, he's been essentially the worst hitting catcher in baseball. Turns out it's really tough to play through shoulder injury. It hasn't really affected his framing. If we go back to last year, he was the best framing catcher in baseball. He saved, per baseball prospectus, 25 runs, which you could even say, if you look at about 10 runs being a win, that could be 2.5 wins right there. So, you can dispute the magnitude of that, but clearly he's been the best framing catcher in baseball, and I think that that's a big reason why he's behind the plate tonight. They want to give the youngster as much help as they possibly can.
So here is Cespedes. We talked plenty about him. He comes into this one hitting .301, 15 homers, 8 doubles, 36 RBIs.
I mean, you wonder if this is the player that he is. People were so concerned about him. One of the things he said in the interview was that the strikes in Cuba, the strike zone was bigger.
Yeah.
So it actually took him a while to adjust a little bit to the strike zone of the Major League Baseball. And I think 100 games in, he has adjusted.
Even speaking to Mets fans, I remember in the offseason when they decided to bring him back, they were excited, no question. We need a bat in the middle of this lineup. But they also said, kind of don't think he's going to be what he was. I mean, that's unrealistic. Well, he's exactly what he was.
It's almost a victim of his own success. I've talked to some Mets fans who, at the time, everybody was thrilled. He didn't have to commit 5 or 6 years and $150 million, 3 years and 75 with an opt-out. That's a really reasonable deal. And now he's clearly playing that. He's clearly going to opt out, and everybody's like, that darn opt-out.
Well, that's how you got it.
Right.
Can't have it both ways, Mets fans. 3-1 the count to Cespedes. And he'll miss outside there. Close call. The call goes to the veteran over the rookie. So Cespedes trots down to first base, and it's runners at the corners with 2 outs here in the bottom of the first for the Mets, and that brings up Neil Walker. A week ago, you guys saw Daniel Murphy playing against the Mets, and obviously that was the big thing in the offseason. Murphy goes away. They bring Neil Walker in, and maybe the only thing that's kept Mets fans sane about how Daniel Murphy's playing is the way Neil Walker's been playing.
Yeah, and it's really been the tale of 2 Neil Walkers. We had Anthony DeComo on our show last week, who's our Mets beat writer, who we'll be having on a little bit later, and he made a really great point, which is that thank God that Neil Walker started off the season the way he did and didn't have it flipped. If you look at it in April, 9 homers, slugged .625, he was 59% above average. If you look at him in May, 2 homers, .319 slugged, and he's been 27% below average. Now imagine if that had been flip-flopped. I don't think he would have ever really gotten off the ground, but the fact he got off to that red-hot start has really allowed him some runway to kind of work through the struggles.
It's all about timing.
Certainly is when it comes to the fragile psyches of New York Mets fans.
He bounces that one foul. We've talked about Urias and the innings limit. We'll get more into that, and of course the pitch limit as far as games go. And right here in the first inning, already 23 pitches. You wonder how far into this game he's going to be able to go. He hasn't gotten to the 90 pitch mark at all this season.
I'm going to say 3 1/3.
Yeah. He's missing up a lot.
I'll write that
He is
down.
missing-
3
yeah,
1/3 for Petriello.
Yeah, I will. I think you're absolutely right. When he misses, he's been missing up. And
Which is asking for trouble.
it seems like he's had some inconsistent release points in terms of his extension. We can measure how far off the mound you let go of the ball, which is pretty cool. And it seems like he's been kind of off by a couple inches, even a half a foot. And whether that's getting used to the new mound or just first stage jitters, which would be more than understandable. It's interesting to see maybe losing some consistency there.
I mean, he is 19 years old.
I would ask you guys what you're doing when you're 19, but I don't think anybody wants to know. Wasn't this?
Statute of limitations.
I was studying for finals, right? May?
Of course.
Yeah,
We were all
that's what I
studying.
was
Sure.
Studying for finals. Walker will send that one out of play down the first base line. So 2-2 the count to Neil Walker as Urias tries to battle through his first major league inning.
Now, I'd be interested to know, and I don't really think that there's any way to actually look this up, but is this going to be the most pitches thrown in an inning in his entire career?
That's going to get down into left field for Neil Walker. That'll go for extra bases. Cabrera scores easily. Cespedes holds up at third. So an RBI double for Neil Walker. First run of Julio Urias' career, and some trouble here in the bottom of the first.
Once again, left it out.
Did leave it up. I think you nailed it exactly. This is probably a decent point to remember why he's here. I think a lot of people saw the 27-inning scoreless streak in the minors, and obviously he's been hyped for years. And I think, he forced his way to the big leagues. The Dodgers have struggled outside of Kershaw, and I don't really think that's true. I think Alex Wood, if he didn't get hurt, would be making this start. And they already called up Mike Bolsinger, pitched the other day. They optioned down Ross Stripling. They couldn't bring him back. Zach Lee has not really been that impressive in the minors. They needed someone to make this start. And I think that, obviously he's been pitching great, but it's not so much that he pushed his way up here. They needed a guy right now, because if they really wanted to bring him up in New York on a Friday night against DeGrom in the 1986 champion celebration, I don't think this is when you choose to do it.
Not the prime situation, maybe. And you wonder if there wasn't the injury issues, if he would eventually have made his big league debut out of the bullpen for this team maybe later in the season.
And I think that's where he's
Yeah.
going next. I think regardless of what happens in this appearance or even what happens if he goes back down, he's going to be a bullpen guy this year.
So here's Juan Lagares playing center field tonight, 273 on the year. which you'd like to see for Juan Lagares, if he can hit 273 with what he brings you defensively.
He just needs to be competent with the bat. And he's been 10 or 15% below average with the bat, and I think that's actually fine if you can feel the way he has. And interesting, last year his arm kind of, he was trying to play through this elbow injury, and it really was not as impressive as it had been the year before. And it's bounced back a lot this year.
That'll get up the middle, just past the shortstop and into center field. Cespedes comes in to score, Walker comes in to score, and it's 3 runs for the Mets here in the bottom of the first. Lagares, a nice clutch 2-out single to center.
That might be a reason it's been 10 years since we had a 19-year-old starting in Major League Baseball.
So what you're saying is you're looking forward to 4.5 innings of Joe Blanton?
Who isn't? Who wouldn't be?
Let's take another look at that one. He shoots it back up the middle. Seager with the effort, but couldn't quite get there. Would have had a tough time getting Lagares at first base, but would have saved a run at least if he had been able to get a glove on that.
A 73-mile-an-hour exit velocity on that ball. So not exactly crushed, but put in the exact right spot.
And they'll talk to him on the mound, try to calm down the youngster here in his first inning of work.
I mean, you take a step back from it. We've had a pitch, listen, we've seen some of the good stuff he can do. We've seen some of the movement. We've seen some of the velocity, but we've also seen. Not only does he throw the pitch way over the catcher, he has a moment where he's clearly rattled there. The crowd kind of gets his head there. I feel like this would rattle a lot of people who aren't 19. So the idea that this would be the first time he's been in a big league game and have this happen at Citi Field, you're right. It's just maybe not the ideal setting for him.
Look, he's not in the fetal position on the mound. I give him all the credit for the world right now.
That's exactly what I would be doing, yes.
Clayton Kershaw, when he came up, 20 years old, made his second career start in New York against the Mets. 3 2/3 innings, 4 walks, 4 runs, 2 strikeouts. Obviously, we know what Kershaw turned into. That's no guarantee that's what Arias turns into, but it's really hard to pitch this young.
It's probably not helping him right now, even if you told him those stats, but hang in there.
Well, you have Chris Hatcher already warming in the bullpen, so off to a good start there. He's not allowed to ball Arias hit 100 miles an hour yet. So he's not getting hit around, but you're right, he's not hitting his spots. He's clearly overthrowing, and I think the Mets are taking advantage of that.
So here's Kevin Plawecki, 25-year-old catcher, getting some more playing time because of the injury to Travis d'Arnaud. Plawecki hitting 186 coming into this one. They'll go the other way with that one and shoot one into right field for another base hit. Runners hold up, so first and second with 2 outs, and now you wonder if he maybe doesn't get out of this.
Well, I was going to say there's
your 3 1/3 looks a little high right now.
There were a lot of possible outcomes to this start, but him potentially not getting through the first inning is not one I would have put a lot of money on.
Here's another look at that base hit by Plawecki. A nice job to go the other way.
Once again, not hit hard.
No, 85 miles an hour. I mean, you gotta make sure that the guys aren't always getting lucky on you, but.
So here's Eric Campbell. Take it in there. I mentioned Plawecki playing because of Travis d'Arnaud's injury. Eric Campbell getting a lot of time because of Lucas Duda's injury as this Mets team kind of battles some bruises here in May.
Of his first 31 pitches, and it was just 32nd there, of the first 31, 16 of them were strikes. That's a pretty hard ratio to succeed with. Mm-hmm. Maybe in the minor leagues you can get some of these AAA guys to chase and hit poor contact batted balls. Big leagues aren't going to work like that.
Well, this is also another idea of we talked about how it's a good thing that he's not throwing 100 miles an hour. This is where the bad part is, when deception is such a large part of what you do, and you're facing big league hitters who have seen all the deception that people can throw at them. This is kind of what can happen a little bit.
Fouled back, so 2-1 count. We continue to talk about how young Julio Urias is, especially as he struggles here in the bottom of the first inning. But here's a look at some other youngsters who have. Well, Felix Hernandez ended up doing okay for himself.
Yeah, Felix Hernandez.
He's doing all right.
And, Wilson Alvarez actually had a bit of a career with the White Sox, and then Todd Van Poppel, one of the most famous draft pick busts ever. So, really, I think the point is to show it's so rare that this ever happens. Right. It's really, really difficult, and maybe even now more so than ever because teams are so much more protective of their young arms. And I couldn't even say this is going to happen again for the next 5 or 10 years. It's like a once-a-decade thing. You see a teenager making his debut.
So you're saying you're not predicting that there's a 13-year-old out there that you've seen that?
Well, I know I can't say that I have.
I was out scouting earlier.
Yeah. Well, but this came up in the office earlier. you almost have to not be an American player to make your debut this young,
Yes.
right? Because you don't start in the pros at 16. You're in high school, or maybe sometimes in college. It's really impossible to go right from high school to the big leagues, and that means you have to at least be 19 almost.
We bring up earlier Mike Morgan, federal Mike Morgan. First start was him. He was 18 years old in 1978. He pitched a complete game, lost 3-0, gave up 10 hits, 5 walks, and no strikeouts. So in case you're wondering how different baseball is now.
That's a ball driven out to left field, but it'll be caught out there by Kendrick. So 36 pitches and 3 runs, but Julio Urias does eventually get out of the first inning. Let's take a look at both of these teams, the best of their StatCast efforts.
Drilled to deep center field. Lagares way back near the wall, and he makes the leaping catch. He took a home run away from Michael Franco. Took out a piece of the padding along the way. High fly ball, deep right field. Puig back on it, at the wall, leaps and can't get it. It's off that new screen. Story can fly. Puig can throw. My goodness! Yasiel Puig from the wall.
A magnificent throw by Yasiel Puig. You're never going to see anything like this one again. That will go down as one of the great throws in baseball history.
Cologne looking for his first hit of the year. He drives one. Deep left field. Back goes Upton. Back near the wall. It's out of here. Bartolo has done it. The impossible has happened. The team vacates the dugout as Bartolo takes the long trot. His first career home run. This is one of the great moments in the history of baseball.
Diaz deals. Kendrick to the right side. Off the glove of Bruce. Nowhere to go. Now a throw to the plate, and Puig beats the throw. By the time that second baseman Phillips comes over to pick it up, Yasiel Puig scores from second base on what should have been an infield out.
Welcome back to our MLB Plus broadcast. I'm Ashley Chavez. Make sure to join the conversation by using the hashtag MLB Plus on Twitter so we can answer all your questions and have you in the conversation. The first one we got, Mike, I know you already said this one, but it's so insane that we had to say it again. Our BFF now, we love Darren Williams tweets, Ichiro had 425 hits in the Japanese League before Julio Urias was born, which is so insane. That's crazy. Next, we have from Scott Pianowski, career highs for Julio Urias, 89 pitches, 6 innings.
He is almost half of the way there already.
Yeah. And lastly, from Yasiel Puig, I came to the Statue of Liberty to find a little 66 fan. Thanks, bro. Hashtag Dodgers fan, hashtag NYC. Pretty cute, I have to admit.
Yeah, outstanding stuff as the Dodgers come to New York, and there's the picture, Yasiel Puig at the Statue of Liberty. That's great stuff. The
Kid's still asleep.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Welcome back to MLB Plus, powered by Amazon Web Services. As we get things going in the second inning, Jacob deGrom back out there. Little smoother first inning for him than for Julio Urias as Adrian Gonzalez hits into good positioned Mets infield, and they get the quick out. 1 up, 1 down here in the second.
Better positioned infield than first base situation. It was almost a collision. DeGrom and Campbell.
I'm going to ask you the easiest question anyone's ever going to ask you. What did Adrian Gonzalez do just there?
He hit into the shift.
He grounded out, right? That is the Adrian Gonzalez experience of 2016. He is hitting grounders. First 3 years as a Dodger, he had 38% grounders, 38% grounders, 37% grounders. This year, 56% grounders. For a guy who charitably is not a fast runner and who relies on power, that's an enormous problem.
Seems like he was just rolling over the ball a lot of times.
Yeah. I mean, his pull percentage is down. I think he's trying not to hit it into the shift, and that seems to be messing up his entire game.
Well, this is what we talk about this every week, the idea of what the shift can do to hitters. We say, make the adjustment. Come on, make the adjustment. But it is a lot easier said than done, particularly when it comes to hitting the ball on the ground.
So here's Howie Kendrick.
Kendrick's off to the worst start of his career, but in a very weird way. His contact percentage is up, which is great, 74% to 82%. Exit velocity is even up a little bit by about a half mile an hour. And his strikeouts are not up, and his walks are not down.
So what's the problem?
He's grounding. Well, a lot of bad luck. I think he's always been a high batting average of balls in play by, but he's also hitting a lot of ground balls. So the combination of that, and obviously right there, he just watched a 96-mile-an-hour pitch from Jacob deGrom.
Right on the corner.
Right on the corner. That's a good pitch.
Yeah.
deGrom has looked fantastic. I know it's only the second inning so far.
It's almost as if we were paying attention to the wrong guy coming into this game.
I think we
hey,
could have predicted that.
Hey, kid, this is how it's done sort of thing. There's the inside. Kendrick, not sure if he loved the call, but good to us. 2 outs quickly. Now to bring up Jock Peterson. Peterson comes in hitting .256, 8 homers, 24 RBIs. He did double off deGrom back on May 10th.
Probably the best hitter for the Dodgers so far this year. I think maybe Trace Thompson in a smaller capacity, and Chase Utley's been good too, but it really has been Peterson. When you see how much he kind of collapsed down the stretch last year. I think by collapsing down the stretch, it really meant he's still getting on base a lot. He just wasn't hitting for as much power before. He's back to kind of what they thought he was. Think about how excited we were about Peterson at the beginning of last year. He has been their best hitter so far.
Yeah, he's been really impressive, and you're right, he completely fell apart down the stretch last year. But I think there was a misconception that it was about strikeouts, that he's always had a strikeout issue, and I think people thought, well, the strikeout issue just swallowed him whole. It's not really what happened. The strikeouts weren't up by that much in the second half. He just expanded his zone too much. He went after a lot of balls he had no business going after, and he started making terrible contact, right? So the power went down, the exit velocity went down. That was a huge problem. And, this year, he's, as you said, he's really been better. He's actually been better so far this year than he was in the first half last year. And he was an all-star in the first half last year. And I think what's helped is that they have really stuck with the platoon with him a lot. 88% of the time he hits with the platoon advantage. You can argue about whether a young player should be able to be exposed to opposite hand pitching, but they've said right now they're more interested in winning ball games than worrying about that side of his development. And, it's worked out so far.
This is the whole Dodgers thing. That's why they have the depth and they play with platoon advantage so often.
He'll watch that one as well as deGrom making quick work of the Dodgers here in the second. 1, 2, 3, a ground out and a couple of strikeouts looking. Let's take another look at that strike 3 call to Jock Peterson. Rung him up. He has a question for the home plate umpire as well. Kendrick didn't like him either. Welcome back to our studios here for MLB Plus as we cruise into the bottom of the second inning here. Tim McMaster along with Will Leach and Mike Petriello, and we've seen two sides of things here. We've seen Jacob deGrom being the ace of the Mets staff that he's become, and we've seen a young kid in a tough situation kind of trying to learn on the fly.
It's tough. I mean, we spend so much time getting stuff about youth and like, wow, he's 19. This is amazing. How is he doing this? This is one of the reasons, as you said, why it doesn't happen very often. Like, listen, the thing that's been interesting about him is you're still seeing movement on his pitches. You're still seeing he just loses his composure a little bit. We saw clearly with that wild pitch that went way over Grandal's head. He's rattled, and frankly, why wouldn't he be?
Yeah, this isn't going to last that long for him in this game, but we saw high velocity, we saw high spin, we saw one really nice breaking ball. You're right, a lot of missed locations, a lot of balls high. It's not going to be a memorable first start, but certainly a lot here to build on.
You can see why people are excited.
Yeah, we saw Rick Honeycutt have to come out and visit Urias on the hill there in the first inning. And before the game, our Lindsey Barrett was able to catch up with Honeycutt and talk to him about the young 19-year-old.
He's been throwing the ball extremely well, but at the same time, I think there gets a point in time where you have to let a young person like that's very talented to keep challenging him so that he's been able to obviously dominate this year. So this is a good opportunity for him to see what it's like up here, but also fill a need for us. There's a planned limit for him this year, so we'll have to manage that and try to, at the same time, give him the opportunity to reach that limit this year, no matter how we have to do it. But that will be first and foremost to make sure that he stays within that limit. Electric fastball, but when he stays within his delivery, command of the fastball first and foremost, and he's got life, like you said. Changeup was a pitch that he had early on when we signed him. I think command of the breaking ball has been extremely encouraging, that he can throw a curveball and kind of a cutter slider. So he has a 4-pitch mix, and really seeing him progress this year is seeing those, the command of all those pitches and be able to use them in a good sequence.
And Urias back out there here in the bottom of the second inning. So we had a little question of whether he would go back out after 36 pitches in the first inning, but he's back out there, and the pitcher at the plate for the Mets, maybe that had something to do with it, as Jacob deGrom will lead things off for New York. 3-0, the Mets lead this one batting in the second.
You do wonder how much, I mean, look at that. That's a nice pitch. He just moved past deGrom. I know deGrom's the pitcher, but as we said earlier, Urias did not get crushed, didn't get hit hard. 2 or 3 of those balls, a couple of feet either way, those are outs. He gets out of the inning with all this damage, maybe you look at this a little differently. Because right now, this isn't going to come out looking like a very successful start for him. And part of it's just been unfortunate batted ball.
3 strikeouts on the game for Urias. His first strikeout of the game was the very first batter, Curtis Granderson, and he'll be up next for the Mets.
Just pointed out, of course, many parallels between Fernando Valenzuela and Urias, but according to if you can believe the press materials, Fernando Valenzuela was actually lighter on his debut than Urias. I confess I don't quite buy it.
I'm not so sure about that. Worth noting that the same scout signed both pitchers. Mike Brito, who, famous to Dodger fans for many years, is the guy right behind home plate with the hat and the radar gun, signed both pitchers 30 years apart, which I think is fascinating.
The hat.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Absolutely.
And that was on the same scouting trip for Urias that they signed. They were down there for Yasiel Puig, and that's how they found Urias. So you might call that a fruitful trip to Mexico.
I love that guy behind me.
Mike Brito.
Oh.
He's a legend.
So Urias starts the second inning the same way he started the first, with a strikeout, but we'll see if he can finish this inning a little better.
He's not missing by much, even when he misses on these. We talk about him being rattled, but you can see he's settled down a little bit, even if he's down 3-1 now.
And Granderson will head down to first base with the walk.
Those pitches, most of them in that at-bat, did not miss by very much. And you could see it clear. He was trying to go low and away to Granderson, and just missed by a couple inches.
So that'll bring up Asdrubal Cabrera, who did the first damage of the game, doubling in that first inning. He eventually came around to score. He moved up to third on a wild pitch by Urias.
Would you believe that we have 2 of the top 5 hitting shortstops in baseball playing this game? Asdrubal Cabrera and Corey Seager.
I would believe Seager.
Yeah, Asdrubal Cabrera. You wouldn't think so. But it kind of makes sense, because Cabrera is not really known for his glove at shortstop.
Saw the overhead camera and look there of Asdrubal Cabrera, that coming to you via our T-Mobile Greater Coverage Cam. That's a great angle until the ball's in play.
I'm just impressed they got a cameraman that's tall enough and hide from the...
Urias gets ahead of Cabrera. That's something that he had some trouble with in the first inning as well, falling behind a lot.
I have to say, I've been pretty impressed with the fastball overall. The location, I think we all agree, could use some work. But, he's hitting 95, above average spin rate. I mean, that's exactly what you want, especially from a left-hander. I think, it's the release point, it's the extension, a little bit of inconsistency. Probably not at all unexpected from any pitcher of any age making his major league debut, to say nothing of a teenager.
Yeah, and the good news is that location is something that's been a strength for him. So
right.
it's going to click. Maybe not clicking tonight in his debut.
Like, if every game he had pitched so far were at Citi Field on national television with everybody screaming at him, he might not actually have the ratio that he does. This is a new environment and a new situation.
Cabrera sends one out to right field. Deep. Puig is back, though. He'll make the play, reaching up. So 2 outs here and a runner on first. Here comes David Wright. Wright also a strikeout victim of Urias in the first inning. Let's take another look at that fly out. Puig making quick work and then just kind of posing. Just a little Puig in there.
It's fun because Cabrera That ball looks like it was actually one of the harder balls hit off of him tonight, and it still wasn't even hit that hard. I'd be curious to see once we get all the numbers. How many has he given up any pitches 100 mile an hour or more?
I will look in a second, but I don't believe so.
Yeah.
Prior to that.
Throw over to first on Granderson.
He's been, we talked about the fastball, but he's been heavily relying on the fastball. And he's thrown the fastball, I think, about 37 times, it looks like, out of 49 pitches, which is a lot. And you wonder if the guys are just kind of sitting on that.
He's got a nice curve, too, as we see right there.
There it is. Gets it in there for a strike. So he's ahead on right after getting ahead on Cabrera. So there's a good sign after he fell behind a lot of batters in the first inning.
Remember, all of that was with 2 outs.
Yep.
The first inning.
97 miles an hour. That is the hardest hit ball he's allowed to Curtis Granderson so far this year. So far tonight, which I guess is also so far this year.
You're right.
That was the foul ball.
So 0-2 pitch coming to David Wright. There's that curve again. Wright sends it out to center field. Jock Peterson is there, and he will take care of it. So a much better inning for Julio Urias here in the second. He does walk a batter, but he gets through it unscathed, and Mike Petriello's prediction of 3 1/3 innings remains a possibility here at Citi Field as we head to the 3rd inning. Let's take a look. We talked a little bit about the other famous 19-year-old out of Mexico. Let's take a look at some of Fernando Valenzuela's moments.
Valenzuela looking for a complete game. Screwball. Fernando Valenzuela has opened the 1981 season with a shutout, and a little child shall lead them. Buoyed by the sparkling play of his elders behind him, Fernando becomes the first ever to win Rookie of the Year and Cy Young awards in the same season. And he's atop the league in nearly every category, including low fives, high fives, and standing O5s. Senya Zero gives up only 4 runs in his first 8 starts, and he has his manager clinging to this incredible dream come true.
Arriba, Fernando.
In his first 8 starts, Fernando pitches 8 complete game victories, but El Amor between Dodger fans and the Fabulous One transcends wins and losses. It's a bond that grows from his plucky spirit, from his boundless enthusiasm, and from his somehow divine screwball. And the legend of Fernando becomes known to all the world. Todo el mundo.
Welcome back to MLB Plus, presented by T-Mobile. Top of the 3rd inning, Dodgers and Mets. Mets in front 3-0. They got 3 in the first inning against the 19-year-old Julio Urias. And now they will try to get back to work. It's Fleet Week here in New York. There's some guys getting to check out the game. It's a great week every year here in New York City with all the boats coming in to the harbor. And these lucky guys get some really good tickets to Citi Field.
I moved from New York 3 years ago, and I miss Fleet Week. I love Fleet Week. So much fun.
I live in Hell's Kitchen, so right by the waterfront on the west
you
side.
see plenty of Fleet Week.
All the time.
I used to work here at MLB.com overnight, so I'd be leaving at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would run into a lot of guys from Fleet Week looking for directions home back to their boat at 3 o'clock in the morning. So they enjoy Fleet Week as well. But let's get back to the baseball.
Just yell west, west.
3-0 ball game. Jacob deGrom back out there, was dominant in the 2nd inning. And Yasiel Puig leading things off for the Dodgers.
Yeah, Puig, 85 plate appearances this month, 1 walk. He is so impatient. He's been going outside the zone more than ever. 29% outside the zone 2 years ago, 38% this year. And as we talk about pretty much every week, making contact outside the strike zone is about the worst thing a hitter can do.
And it's amazing because that's been the thing for Puig his entire career. And we talked about it even when he was making the spectacular plays and hitting home runs. That was still an issue, and you know it's something they harp on, and he just hasn't been able to quite correct that.
Yeah, the pitch just before this one, the slider low and away, that just kills him. You cannot lay off of it, and if you have a good slider, and Jacob deGrom certainly does, I mean, that's absolutely what you want to get with.
Here's the 2-2 pitch coming from deGrom. That one over the plate, and he just misses.
It is strange, you know, him as a hitter. We've talked about him maturing as a person. He had the ball where he didn't run out the other day, but it was not a big fuss because, you know, he apologized, did the things you're supposed to do. But it's still worth knowing that, like, the approach to the plate has really not improved, and if anything, it's regressed.
And now he's added pop-ups.
Yeah.
Right? He is leading baseball in percentage of batted balls that become pop-ups. And pop-ups are basically strikeouts in terms of how often they lead to success. Yeah, every once in a while, a fielder will run into another fielder or lose it in the sun or whatever. But unless a fielder messes up, it's going to be an out. And here's his second walk of May.
And he holds off.
And he, yeah, but
Impressive.
barely.
Barely.
If that pitch were just a little bit further in, I think he would have went.
They did have to check down at first base to make sure, and here's the stats you were talking about with the pop-ups.
Yeah, it's an interesting list of names here, right? Because these are all, you know, relatively known names, and in some cases you think these are stars, like Todd Frazier hits a lot of home runs, but you can make the argument a lot of these guys are somewhat overrated because they have power maybe, but they don't get on base, they don't hit for a high average. Because they do that, they just drop that on top of your strikeout percentage, essentially.
If you added that to the strikeout percentage, think about.
That is out into right field and get just over the head of Neil Walker. So the walk, and then here goes Puig to third, aggressive base running, and he'll get in there with the wild slide, and that's why we love Yasiel Puig.
That is why you love Yasiel Puig. Is exactly right. That's why you forgive all the things when he doesn't run to second or doesn't run out of what he thinks is a home run or makes a defensive lapse. That is pure athleticism and aggression. That is exactly why you love it.
And I love to see when he actually decides that this ball is going to drop in. He was playing it pretty much halfway, but he sees that Neil Walker has to kind of go after it backwards, and wow.
Well, look how he takes advantage of Walker kind of not realizing he's going to go. Yep. Reverse those roles. Let's say Puig makes that mistake where it looks like he doesn't think the guy's going to run, so he doesn't throw. We are all over Puig in that situation.
Right.
The fact that he took advantage of someone else not being as heads up as they should, we should praise him for that as much as we criticize him when that doesn't happen.
And because of that, a run just 90 feet away as Urias at the plate gets down the bunt. That's going to be trouble. DeGrom can't handle it, and Urias is on base.
Save the baseball. Save the baseball.
Not a terrible bunt as far as bunts go.
And we'll see if we can get a shot. But the Dodgers in the dugout actually requesting the baseball. Urias loads up the bases. Here's another look. DeGrom got the glove on it, but couldn't pick it up. And if it gets past DeGrom, it's probably a base hit anyway.
Are they going to give him a hit on that one?
I think they will. Well,
yeah. I'm not sure they should. But,
I'm not sure they should either.
I mean, because that was really DeGrom getting a little bit in too much of a hurry. He had a lot more time than he had. Even missing that ball, it still was a relatively close play. So, yeah, it was scored an error. So they threw the ball back. So there you go. They kept the ball and they threw it back. And look who's up.
Is this really what you want, though, if you're the I know you want the bases loaded, but do you want Urias now running the bases in between the second and third innings?
Well, I think you make a good point, but I also don't think they have any expectations he's going to go that deep into the game.
Fair enough. So here's Chase Utley. You could tell, even if you weren't watching, that Chase Utley was back up at the plate. Just a little listen to the Citi Field faithful. Bases loaded. Big spot here for the Dodgers as they try to get their way back into this one.
And I think it was, Will, actually, I can't remember which one of you was talking earlier about, you know, Chase Utley was hated in New York well before the slide because he always crushes the Mets. And if this isn't a situation for that to happen right now.
This would be the pitch to do it, too.
Utley worked a walk back in the first inning. He ended up being caught stealing on a strike him out, throw him out. And that'll get into center field. Lagares is there. Should be deep enough to get the run home. Lagares will throw into third, so Puig trots home 3-1. Dodgers are on the board.
Now you look at this inning and you think, well, here comes DeGrom again, right? Base runners and runs. But really, what happened this inning? A walk, a bloop, an aggressive base running play, an error on a bunt where he probably should have had it, and a sac fly so far. This, you know, in the scorebooks, it's going to say, oh, well, here comes DeGrom, but there's really not that much bad happening here for him.
Yeah, I mean, this was the best hit ball he's given up all inning, and that was just an easy sacrifice fly to center field.
So Utley gets the job done as far as getting a run home, and that'll bring up Corey Seager. Seager struck out back in the first inning.
Yeah, DeGrom's back up to throwing 91-mile-an-hour sliders here, right? This is more or less the DeGrom we'd kind of gotten used to last year when he was being absolutely dominant.
And really, it came down, if he would have gotten that slider just a little bit more on Puig, I think he would have gone after it. He almost went after it as he did, and that was way outside.
If the ump had called that he had gone after it, I think
no,
that
it would have been.
Right.
Big cut from Seager. Yeah, DeGrom numbers, really, it's amazing the difference over the last 4 starts, too, because the 1.02 ERA, he was 3-0 through 3 starts, and it's been a different story the last 4 starts. And tonight, I feel like we've seen him more like those first 3 starts, except for some bad luck here.
Yeah, the first 3 starts, he did look better, but I think, if I remember correctly, 2 of those were against the Braves and Phillies. No disrespect to some of the
Phillies are pesky.
The Phillies pitching is pesky. Well, what's really been an issue for him beyond the velocity this year is his curveball. It used to be one of his big strikeout pitches. The last couple of years, he'd get about 14% swinging strikes on it. This year, only 6%. So that's really been the loss of a big weapon for him.
Misses outside, so 2-2 the count to Seager.
It is kind of crazy to think when you think of DeGrom, comparing him to Urias a little bit, like the idea that DeGrom 5 years ago was not considered a major prospect, was not someone that people were particularly excited about with the Mets, and then he just found that one little adjustment, and it turned him into the star that he's become.
In that rookie season when he won Rookie of the Year, he was 26, first of all, which goes to what you were saying, but also I remember him getting off to the great start, and they're just being kind of like, oh, but he's not a big prospect, so this isn't going to last.
The regression is coming.
Yeah, it'll happen, and then it didn't happen. He won Rookie of the Year, and then he dominated the All-Star game the next year. And
I remember when they needed a pitcher, they wanted to call Rafael Montero, but he got hurt, so like, I guess it'd have to be DeGrom, and look what happened.
Down grounded back to DeGrom. They'll try to get 2, and they do. So a nice job. He makes the error on the bunt, but a nice bit of fielding from the pitcher there to start the double play. They load him up quickly, but DeGrom does a nice job of limiting the damage as the Dodgers just get 1 run across. We'll head to the bottom of the 3rd inning. Still 3-1, the Mets in front of this one. Here's another look at that play by DeGrom. Nice job getting off the rubber.
It's a good way to make up for that error. It's a nice calm. Got plenty of time, relaxes, takes it easy double.
Yeah, going from bases loaded, no outs to a 1-run inning, it's about the best you can hope for.
Absolutely. It was just the sacrifice fly to center field by Chase Utley. That's how they get the 1 run. Welcome back. It's 3-1 as we head to the bottom of the 3rd inning, and Anthony DiComo is actually out at Citi Field. He's in the crowd. He's kind of soaking in the atmosphere, and that means he was there when Chase Utley got booed, well, not just last inning, but also the first time he came up. Anthony, welcome to the show, and talk a little bit about how the Mets fans treated Utley in his first at-bat.
Yeah, it was pretty loud, and you know what, I remember the first game back here last year during the playoffs, the NLDS, Ruben Tejada had obviously broken his leg in Game 2, and then they came back here for Game 3, and the Dodgers were all lined up on the line. It was one of those ceremonial things. And the cameraman actually stopped and paused on Chase when he was introduced. And the boos must have lasted at least 60 seconds. It wasn't quite so bad today, but he really got it. They rained down on him for a while there, and he knew that was going to come. The Mets knew that was going to come. Terry Collins was asked before the game today, what sort of reaction do you think Chase Utley's going to get? He said, oh, they're going to hate him. I think as we've seen now, between the games in Los Angeles earlier this month and these first 2 at-bats today, if retaliation was coming, it was going to come already. I think that part of this is probably a dead issue.
Hey, Anthony, it's Mike. Obviously, Julio Urias coming up is a huge deal for Dodger fans, but what's your impression of what the Mets fans think about it? Do they know who he is? Has there been excitement about him on the Mets side?
I think people are interested to see him, yeah, for sure. It's kind of a last-minute thing, so you buy tickets to this game. I think this game has been pretty sold out for a while with 1986 weekend and all of that. So it was almost like a little surprise treat for the baseball fans in this crowd who do know who Urias is. Expected to see someone else be one of the best pitching prospects in the game. It's a pretty cool thing, but this is a very pro-Mets crowd. So I think these guys and what Jacob deGrom has to offer and what this offense can do against Urias than maybe the Dodgers prospect himself.
Yeah, Anthony, thanks. And we're going to listen to that pro-Met crowd a little bit at the introduction of Chase Utley back in the first inning. Let's give a listen. Anthony DiComo. He'll be back with us later on in the show as he takes in the sights and sounds of Citi Field. Of course, he's our MLB.com Mets reporter, so Citi Field, he probably spends more time there than he does in his apartment. Very familiar with the surroundings.
I think I heard Seinfeld in one of the booths. You hear his voice a little bit. Carmelo Anthony is also there tonight wearing a half Mets, half Yankees cap, which I feel like just wear the Mets cap when you're a Mets game and the Yankees cap when you're at
There's no excuse for that. I'm sorry, you can't defend it.
Probably wants to wear an Orioles hat anyway.
Yeah, from Maryland. Yeah. Loves New York, though. Here's Yoenis Cespedes leading things off for the Mets in the third. Cespedes worked a walk, eventually came around to score in that first inning. So Urias back out there for his third inning of work. Obviously the jitters in the first inning or whatever, he was missing spots, he was up high. The struggles were clearly there. How much different did he look in the second frame?
Well, he threw about a third as many pitches, so he got through that a lot better. Yeah, I think absolutely he kind of got past a little bit. The release point was a little more consistent. The high pitches weren't quite as high. Obviously, we saw that one pitch in the first inning go way over Grandal. So he looks like a different pitcher now, and I think we'd said at the time, there was a lot of good that came out of the first inning. It wasn't getting hit hard. We saw the high spin and high velocity on the fastball. Just needed to be able to use it more effectively, and I think we're seeing that now. He's not going to get a 6 or 7 inning start, obviously, but he's not going to have to get the bullpen in there in the first inning, which looked like it was a possibility for a brief minute.
You even saw him kind of some of that deception a little bit in that pitch on Cespedes. He was up 3-1. Cespedes was just sitting. He drills left-hand pitchers anyway. He's just sitting on the pitch. He took just enough off that he was ahead of it and popped it pretty easily to center.
That curveball misses a little bit high to Neil Walker. So he threw 36 pitches in the first inning. Now he's at 58 pitches. So he's certainly been a little more frugal.
I feel like we haven't seen that slider very much tonight. That kind of usually that curve's like 74, 75. He's throwing that. He's been throwing mostly fastballs anyway. I feel like that's a pitch we haven't actually seen very much tonight.
Yeah, not too often. He's been throwing the slider, or excuse me, the fastball almost 2/3 of the time, and mixing in a changeup here and there and a curveball. The scouting reports were fastball change and curve, but sometimes he's got a variation on the curve where he throws it harder, where it starts to look like a slider, and then you start to get in a little bit of a gray area in terms of what do you call it, what do you want to classify it as, especially for a guy we haven't really seen. So
I mean, that's 10 miles an hour faster than some of the curveballs we've ever seen.
Yeah, so I think you're right, and that's interesting because it's not necessarily what the reports would have you believe.
Gets that fastball over. So 2-2 the count to Neil Walker.
I mean, I have to say, if you told me that he'd have 2 outs with 6, he'd be looking at this with 1 out, 2-2, out to go, 62 pitches after that first inning. This is settling down quite a bit.
Yeah, and if you can keep this up, then you can take away a lot of positive things. You don't have to go, I made it 2/3 of an inning and that was it.
In fact, you get to the point where maybe you take that first inning videotape and just kind of burn it.
Forget it.
Hey, that never happened.
But remember, he wasn't getting hit that hard even with that. So I think that's there's a lot to I think obviously when you give up 3 runs in the first inning, it's not ideal. And I feel like this is now the second straight week we've been really defending a pitcher that's been struggling, saying he's looking better, looking better. But I think certainly what you've seen from him, not only settling down, but even that first inning wasn't quite as bad as it looked.
2-2 pitch coming from Urias to Neil Walker, and he misses outside, so full count. Walker had the big blow back in the first inning. He had the 2-run double.
The funny thing is Urias came in with a bit of a reputation in the minors as being a ground ball pitcher, right? And so far, 7 outs, 3 strikeouts, and 4 flyouts.
Of course.
Walker continuing to battle.
It is fascinating how much more we can learn about him. People have been scouts watching him, and everyone's watching. But now he's in an actual major league park where we can quantify all of this stuff. We're going to know so much more about him than we did an hour and a half ago. His position
right. Now I know that.
Yes.
Nicely done. The flip over to first base, and that'll do it for Neil Walker. Let's take a look back at Neil Walker back in the first inning. He came through with that big double. Here's the StatCast replay. Is it powered by Amazon Web Services?
Yeah, he goes down for that. He gets to 96 miles an hour, which isn't really going to be enough to get it out of the park. But he positions it perfectly, like right down the left field line. Howie Kendrick out there isn't really a left fielder, so that doesn't help. But for Neil Walker, that's perfect. Nice long strangle. and that's how you end up with a double.
And worth noting again, still not hit that hard. That is one of the harder hit balls you've seen off of him tonight. And of course, where he hit it in the angle was right, but that was not a launch shot for.
No, not at all.
That brings up Juan Lagares. Lagares singled in that first inning. He rips another single into left field. So Lagares 2 for 2 on the day.
You know, it's funny, we talked earlier about Lagares saying how he only needs to hit like a little bit to be able to justify himself. But of course, the problem is still they have Conforto, Cespedes, and Granderson. It's still, even when he's hitting the ball well, it's hard to find a spot for him, which I think speaks to that general idea of how the Mets weren't sure they were going to have Cespedes at some point. And obviously they're glad they are, but it's still hard to find spots for their best defensive center fielder.
And that was the dilemma with Cespedes, too, bringing him back was, okay, we're going to bring him back because we really need that bat. We got to have that bat in the middle of the lineup, but they knew they were sacrificing something. Because even though there was a time when and hey, he won a Gold Glove in left field, but it's just not the same guy that Lagares is.
Poor Daza. Daza thought he was going to have tons of at-bats this year.
And poor Mets, like he just doesn't fit at all. They really needed someone like a Steve Pearce, you know, a right-handed guy who could play first base, a little bit of right field. Would have been an amazing fit, especially now.
Particularly hurt. Right.
Plawecki jumps ahead 2-0. Kevin Plawecki had a single as well back in the first. Really, that's when things unraveled. It was walk to Cespedes, and then Walker double, Lagares single, Plawecki single, all with 2 outs.
He's pulling off a little bit here, too. You're seeing him start to lose that release point a little bit. He's settled down a little bit. You've seen this a couple times. When he's been hit hard, he kind of loses a little bit the next at bat, which, again, he's 19. That'll happen.
Here's a look at our T-Mobile greater coverage cam again, checking out Lagares on first base. It's a great angle of the pitcher, and you see the move over to first.
I love this, especially with a left-handed pitcher, especially when the first base coach doesn't stand totally in our way.
Get out of the way.
But it's a great angle when you're trying to do a pickoff, or you can see how far a guy gets off the base, which we can measure now. We can measure distance and secondary distance, which I think is super fun. So that's a really cool angle we've got there. So I'm sorry, Tim.
3-1 the count as Urias tries to get through 3.
The Lagares single that we just saw, another one that was not necessarily ripped. He hit it at 82 miles an hour, but he hit it at 14 degrees. And the league average on those, 947. Because if you think about it, where that ball lands, just over the infield, you're never going to have an outfield. Now, I mean, we maybe in softball will have the rover there, but, you know, a major league team is just about never going to have that there. I think the only time you ever really see that being an out is if a team is heavily shifted and maybe they do have someone there. So exit velocity is great, but it's really got to be combined with the launch angle to get to the sweet spot of where success is going to lie.
Yeah, 110 miles per hour off the bat's great unless it's straight up.
Right, right, exactly.
Oof.
See, there's another one. We've seen that a couple times where he tries to reach back and he just overthrows, and his release point just gets all awry.
So Plawecki on for the second time in this game, and that'll bring up Eric Campbell.
Yeah, see that, I think that pitch might have cost him coming out to the fourth.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, they set a rough limit of about 90 pitches, and unless he gets his next out on like 1 or 2 pitches, I could easily see this being the end for him.
Really a bold prediction by you to go with 3 1/3. The reason I say that is that you would think they would rather take him out at the end of an inning rather than him pitch to one batter in the next.
You're absolutely right, but you know, where's the fun in going with just, like,
Split
the
on
simple
me.
choice?
I'm giving you credit.
I could have gone with like 3 1/3 and 2 strikes.
I mean,
there's the spin action you see on the pitch up high.
every time he's kind of reached back like that, he's lost his release point. He's kind of lost really his rhythm. And you've seen this already. You know, this is the second time this has happened. Remember, he had 2 outs when everything kind of went sideways on him in the first inning. You've seen this again here. He just, when he tries to pull back like that and really kind of give everything on a 3-2 pitch, the release point's off, and he's completely out of the zone.
You see that rotation there, Mike? Can you predict a spin rate on that?
Super slow. Well, I haven't looked on that pitch, but because I haven't been following it tonight, I'm going to say somewhere around 2450. And league average on a fastball is about 2200, so that is considerably above average.
Urias got himself into trouble in the first, couldn't get out of it. We'll see if he can do it here. Gets ahead in the count to Campbell, 1-2.
This is a little bit of a risk here, man, with the way he's going. This game's still just a two-run game.
A risk in leaving him in, or something? Because I think you're right. He's not going to get past this inning.
Right. 2-2 as he misses outside.
I know the ground's on deck.
Big pitch for Urias here, and it's fouled.
This is the difference between walking away from your first Major League start feeling like, okay, that went all right, had some bumps, to, oh, that really went poorly. Is really this at bat?
It's amazing that this next pitch is going to almost entirely define how he feels about this night.
That's exactly right.
It'll be his 80th pitch of the night. Here it comes. And it's a curveball, and he could have had it.
And that was a curveball, or a slider that was high, right? You don't want that breaking pitch to be high. You kind of want it to dip, and I think that's kind of an issue there.
That's a tough pitch to get called a strike too when it's that high.
So full count. And he misses again. So another base run, and they load him up. Interesting spot. The pitcher's up, and here comes. That's going to be it. That's going to be it for Urias. So he won't get the chance to face Jacob deGrom.
So, Mike, you were right. He would be taken out mid-inning. You were just top half and the bottom half off.
Well, I didn't predict that he would throw 42 strikes and 39 balls.
Right. For a guy with his strikeout to walk ratio instead of Costa League, that is surprising until you consider he is 19 and pitching at Citi Field in his Major League debut.
So that's it for Julio Urias. 81 pitches. You heard the numbers from Mike Petriello. He gets through 2 2/3 innings. He had a rough first. He had a pretty good second inning. And then we'll see if they can wiggle out of this one. But let's take a look back at that first inning as we take a look at a StatCast replay powered by Amazon Web Services.
Yeah, that's a pitch. I mean, that's a fastball, and we like his fastball, but it's a bit up and right down the middle, essentially. And Cabrera is an above-average hitter, and you know exactly what he's going to do with that. This is the exact opposite. That's a breaking pitch low. Just a really nice piece of hitting by Walker. It's not a bad pitch at all. Nice job by Walker to get that.
And note, when you see all of these exit velocities, none of them are over 100. None of them are crazy high. He's not really just getting hammered. A lot of these are going in the wrong places. And the problem also, he's walking guys, and that allows that puts a lot of variables into the situation where a ball like this costs you.
Look at the way Lagares had to reach out for that ball, and he got it, what did it say, 73 miles an hour? That is not a ball that's crossed. It's just the absolute right spot. Sometimes there's not much you can do about that, and I think Major League hitters are going to be able to at least make that happen, whereas a minor league hitter would have missed that completely or just hit it right.
And the thing you do to make sure that doesn't happen is to not walk guys in front.
Absolutely.
Yeah, keep those guys off the bases, which is something he was unable to do in this one. And so out is Urias, and in is Chris Hatcher to pitch for the Dodgers, the right-hander, 31 years old. Will take things over and try to get the pitcher and get out of trouble here and help out his 19-year-old teammate.
Yeah, Chris Hatcher is a complicated guy. He was part of the D. Gordon trade, and last year he got off to just a really brutal start, and they got hurt, and he came back and quietly was dominating for the rest of the season in the playoffs. And so he came into this year kind of expecting to be the setup man. I talked to him in spring training a little bit, and I told him he had a Wade Davis fastball, because in terms of spin rate and velocity and movement, it mirrors it very similarly. He laughed and said, that's actually who I modeled myself after. That's who I watch. And unfortunately for him, it's been a really, really tough start this year. His ERA is over 6. There's a bunch of different stats we could use. Here's the most damning one to me. Last year, he allowed 14 balls hit at 100 miles an hour or more. This year, he's allowed 14 balls hit at 100 miles an hour or more. It's not even in May yet.
It's also a little disappointing to see like a grown-up pitching. He's got a beard.
He's got a beard. He's got a family. He's got kids of his own.
You saw the base runners, and it's Jacob deGrom at the plate trying to help himself here in the bottom of the third. 2 outs, bases loaded for the Mets.
It's a really tough spot for Hatcher. Bases loaded, but like I said, his strikeout percentage down from 27 to 16. Walk rate up from 8 to 15. He is a really talented guy having an absolute mess of a season, and this is such a hard spot to be put in, even if it's the pitcher up.
Yeah, it speaks to how Roberts was ready to get Urias out of there, because he brought, I mean, this is a left-handed batter who looked pretty bad against Urias last time. You got to think that he definitely wanted him out if he puts Hatcher in this spot.
How many times do you think in the first 3 innings of a game, a new pitcher is brought in to face the pitcher?
Yeah, with the lack of platoon advantage.
Yeah. He brings the 96.9-mile-an-hour fastball there, so
there's
he gets
the way,
ahead.
There's the way Davis fastball.
Yeah. The way
right.
Davis fastball.
And so when he's right, he can do that. It's got good spin. It's got good velocity. I mean, that's a really good fastball. But his problem when he wasn't going well last year is he used it way too often. He's got a good splitter, but he kind of fell in love with that fastball until he started changing the separation there. And this year it just hasn't really worked out so well.
Comes back with it again, and DeGrom able to foul that one away.
And that looks like a scary pitch. That's impressive for DeGrom to be able to foul that off. But you can see why he might fall in love with that.
Yeah.
You would think 2 straight 97 against the pitcher, that splitter may look pretty good right now.
His splitter, and then he's also got a slider, and the slider he threw really hard last year, almost 90 miles an hour. And then when he was going well, it dropped to 86 miles an hour. And usually, velocity drop's a bad thing. And he said that Rick Honeycutt, the pitching coach, told him to use a curveball grip of it because he wanted more separation on it. That was a really nice pitch. There's that Wade Davis fastball.
Yeah,
Great job by him to get out of that inning.
He raises it up 98 to get DeGrom, so he helps out the teenager. Let's take a look. We've seen the Mets' young pitchers the last couple weeks. Here's Jim Duquette talking about them.
It's amazing the run that the Mets have had with their drafted pitchers, in particular, top-end rotation starters. It didn't always turn out that way. Jacob deGrom is the one that really stands out to me. He was a converted kid, a position player, goes into the rotation, and really it took him to AAA before they started to see him evolve into the pitcher that he was going to be. And even until the big leagues, when he pitched against the Yankees, that's when he really took off and really has never looked back. Matt Harvey had the high expectations. He was a #1 pick for them. His stuff played up when he got to the big leagues. Of course, the plus fastball, breaking stuff, and changeup. And then Matt's on the left-hand side. He's a local kid, obviously from New York. He's got plus stuff, fastball, curveball, and changeup. But he had to battle through some injuries in the minor leagues and still through the big leagues as well. But rarely do you have the combination of power stuff, 2 right-handers, 1 left-hander come through your system right about the same time. The other acquisitions that stand out again from the Mets side of things are the 2 trades. Zach Wheeler, they got in the Carlos Beltran trade. He ends up getting injured. But the guy that's really stood out, Noah Syndergaard. And really, they thought Travis d'Arnaud was going to be the key piece in that deal. They didn't know Syndergaard was going to really develop that excellent curveball in addition to the plus velocity fastball. This guy has shown the ability to pitch, knows how to pitch, the fierceness that you've seen out of him. We saw it in the postseason. He's just picked up where he left off this past year.
Welcome back to MLB Plus, powered by Amazon Web Services. Let's take a look back at that postseason run by the Mets. And Jacob deGrom did a number on the Dodgers games 1 and game 5. He wins both of them. And how about Kershaw? He faced in game 1, Greinke in game 5. Not bad. Piles up the strikeouts. He got it done at Dodger Stadium.
People are excited about Urias, but those are too tough for guys to take down.
Too tough. Oh, Greinke, everyone freaking out that they let him go to Arizona, and Greinke's just not really had the kind of season this year.
Overall, in that playoff series for deGrom, he was 2-0, 1.38 ERA. He went 13 innings. He allowed 2 earned runs. He struck out 20 in those 13 innings. Good stuff out of Jacob deGrom. He settles back in here, top of the 4th inning, and Justin Turner will lead things off for the Dodgers.
What is going on with Turner this year? He was such a surprising hitter last year, was such a huge part. He's their best hitter for large sections of last year. What's going on this year?
Justin Turner, over the last 2 years, was the best hitting third baseman in baseball. which you think about that is insane, right? He was a non-roster invite.
Ask Mets fans.
Ask Mets. I spent most of the last 2 years when David Wright was hurt and Murphy was hurt for a little while, and they really needed an infielder. And said, it'd be a good fit. Justin Turner would be a good fit. He's at the point in his career where he's almost had an exact 50-50 split between his career before the Dodgers and with the Dodgers. And with the Dodgers, he's been 37% above average as he gets hit right there. Before the Dodgers, he was 6% below average. So your question is, what's his problem this year? And I say two things. One is that he's been far less aggressive. He's not swinging at as many pitches in the strike zone. But also, he had microfracture knee surgery in the offseason. And that's not minor knee surgery. That is a big, serious deal. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's going to cost him some of his athleticism.
Yeah, microfracture is one of those things where if you play other sports, that can be it. I mean, we've seen NBA players have that surgery and really never be the same. You would think baseball a little less on the knees overall in a running and jumping.
But certainly still an adjustment.
Absolutely. He's probably really glad he doesn't play on turf.
Yes.
I think everybody's glad they don't play on turf.
Part of me wonders if that's why Carl Crawford's career took such a nosedive, because he played so many years on that Tampa Bay turf, and obviously he's a guy who relies on his legs more than just about anybody.
Which is something that people brought up when they made that trade.
Yeah. Well, with the Red Sox, right? Because with the Dodgers, he was essentially a tax to get Adrian Gonzalez.
Makes you wonder and worry maybe a little bit about Kevin Kiermaier, doesn't it?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it does.
Top of the fourth here, Adrian Gonzalez stepping in, and he gets ahead 3-0 against DeGrom. So DeGrom hits Turner, falls behind 3-0 here.
And Gonzalez has been essentially a league average hitter to this point, which for him is
step down.
He's been one of the most consistent hitters in baseball. Every single year, he's not the superstar he once was, but every year 20 to 25% above average, like clockwork. And this year, pounding everything into the ground, and that's a big problem for him.
The other thing he's done in his career is hit really well against Jacob deGrom. 6 for 16, 2 homers. He also strikes out, though. 6 for 16 of those outs, 8 strikeouts.
One of those home runs was in deGrom's second career big league start, I believe.
So it's a different Jake deGrom
yes,
now.
That's the tonight's Julio Urias version.
Right.
Yes.
As Gonzalez slaps a single into center field. So 2 on, nobody out here quickly for the Dodgers as we take another look at that single from Gonzalez. But as bad as this game looked in the first inning, suddenly it's still 3-1, and here the Dodgers have the go-ahead run at the plate, tying runs on.
Yeah, this is great, and Tim, Will and I were here last week with the Matt Harvey game against the Nationals, and that one got out of hand real quick. So I think we were both having visions of that in the first inning here, and this is actually turning into a really good game. So
we were going to talk a lot about the 1986 Mets.
A lot.
If that had happened. Yeah, a trip down memory lane. We still will probably get to that at some point.
Well, since we're there,
sprinkle it in.
Since we're there, do you like the racing stripe uniforms?
I didn't like them in 1986, and
No.
See, I feel like there are a lot of uniforms I didn't like then that I love.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like
I
that's
do
a
agree
good
with
example
that.
of it. I think that's a good example. I think we're going to see some great All-Star games. So we get old uniforms from the 80s.
I can't wait. I can't wait to go to San Diego and see the Burger King uniforms.
We're going to see those special high socks in San Diego as well. Good stuff. Here's Howie Kendrick. He struck out back in the second inning. DeGrom could use a strikeout right here. Turner leading off of second. DeGrom checks on him, fires home, and that's bounced to the right side. They'll try to turn 2. It'll be a tough turn. DeGrom covering the bag. And they can't get it there in time. But they do get the runner heading to second, so it'll be runners on the corners with 1 out. Nice play over at first base. That's just a tough double play to turn.
Yeah, good job by Eric Campbell over there. And we probably haven't talked enough about what's happening at first base for the Mets right now. Lucas Duda is out for 6 or so weeks, I believe, if not longer. Yeah. And they just don't really have an option there. And then Asdrubal Cabrera missed some time earlier this week. We all know David Wright's issue. I was worried this this game was going to be an infield of Neil Walker, Ty Kelly, Eric Campbell, and Matt Reynolds, which is no way for a contending team to have an infield.
Well, this has been one of the things the Mets have been doing is they've been trying to, because they know they don't have a good infield. They know they don't have a good outfield, but they're really trying to kind of use the data, use kind of shift. I know they shifted a little bit less, but use all these different formations because they're trying to basically hide big gaps in their defense right now.
Yes, and I think it's working better in the infield than in the outfield.
The one benefit we would have had from that infield is that Ty Kelly and Matt Reynolds both faced Julio Urias this year in the minor leagues.
That's awesome. See, that would have been great.
We would have been able to talk about that, but otherwise, I got to agree with your point.
Ty Kelly, who I think's in his late 20s or early 30s, must have been like, "Why? I can't believe I'm in minor leagues. I'm batting against an 18-year-old and now, or an 18-year-old, and now he's starting in the majors."
So here's Jock Peterson with runners on the corners.
I know we talked about Peterson earlier, but he looked so lost last year. I thought for sure he was going to end up back in the minor leagues. And for a while, it almost looked like Trace Thompson would take his job in center field. And the fact that he's battled back and has actually been hitting better than he did last year. His slugging percentage is up, his on-base percentage is up, contact percentage is up. He's been able to do that without losing his power. It's really impressive bounce back by a young player.
It's great, too, because he was so fun at the Home Run Derby last year. That was one of the great highlights of that with him and Albert Pujols and his brother. I think that was one of the favorite things that happened at the All-Star game last year, and he kind of seemed to fall off almost right after that.
And it always makes you wonder, right, about the Home Run Derby and those guys, because he swung so hard at
the Bobby Abreu syndrome.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Todd Frazier, too, also fell off in the second half.
He was swinging from his back foot, just, he put on a show, and it was fantastic, but you wonder if some guys do get affected by that. They check on Kendrick over at first base. It's a big spot for DeGrom. This is when your ace, when your guy that's now become a veteran here in Major League Baseball, this is where he needs to step up, get the big outs, get out of this inning. Bounce foul.
So while Urias obviously bounced back, Dodgers have a lot of bullpen innings to fill right now. And, they just played that 17-inning game last week. That's not exactly the best spot to be in.
And with all the injuries, too.
Right. But I think that goes to show this was a call-up necessitated by need more than wanting him up because they knew he was not going to go deep into this game.
Yeah, they knew, best case scenario, they need 4 innings out of their bullpen.
At least.
Well, this is the whole Dodgers thing. This is why they need McCarthy to come back to them. They need a lot of these guys to get back because, listen, for all their issues, there are guys they're returning back for them.
Yeah.
And these things may not be as big of a problem in a month and a half as maybe they are right now.
Hyunjin Ryu is pitching in AAA right now. He's on his way back. And Alex Wood has been outstanding in the last game.
And they'll ring him up over at third base, so Dodgers get the call there. Peterson doesn't love it, but it's a big out, and now it's 2 outs with runners on the corners. DeGrom will try to get out of things against Yasiel Puig.
Peterson was not very happy with that, and I can't say I blame him. That pitch seemed considerably off the plate to me.
Yeah.
But you can see why he's so upset about it.
We're going to get another look at it right here.
I feel like if you come that hard, I think with the pitch that far out of the zone, you lose a little bit of the benefit of the doubt on that. I think if that's low and in, that's a little easier, but either way, you got to be protecting play a little bit better than that when you need some contact.
I predict we're going to see at least one low and away slider here to Yasiel Puig.
At least.
Yeah, look where the catcher's setting up, right there. But he kept it up, so Puig was able to get some wood on it. Unfortunately, a simple ground ball.
Bounces out to short, so that'll do it as DeGrom puts some runners on, gets in some trouble, but finds his way out of it, and the Mets continue to lead this one 3-1 as we head into the bottom of the 4th here. All your MLB Plus coverage. Tim McMaster here along with Mike Petriello and Will Leach. It's been a lot of fun so far. We've gotten to see the good and the bad from Julio Urias, that's for sure. Jacob DeGrom working through troubles. kind of the Jacob deGrom you expected to see, I would think.
Yeah, well, actually a little bit better, I think. DeGrom's actually been pretty impressive, and I think his velocity is starting to dip a little bit, but, that's probably true for most pitchers as you get into the game. He's done an impressive job because he hasn't been blowing people away, but when the Dodgers have gotten men on, they haven't been able to have that big inning. We saw that bases loaded and no outs, and they only scored 1 run. So DeGrom's really done a great job of keeping his team in the game, and I think for the Mets, after his kind of struggles this year, it's exactly what you want.
Yeah, the hard slider has really been the key. That was the key thing on the Puig pitch as well. When he's got that going and is still throwing in those mid-90s, even if he gets himself in jams, that's the advantage that he has that, say, Urias did not have tonight. Like, he doesn't have that really great out pitch just yet because, again, he's 19.
He's 19. We'll keep saying that. He's 19.
In case you forgot.
It's insane. Like, let us not overstate that enough. He is 19 years old pitching in a Major League Baseball game tonight. That's pretty wild.
It is pretty wild. It's impressive. And let's head back out to Citi Field. Lindsey Berra is there. We saw Lindsey's interview with Rick Honeycutt a little bit earlier. Lindsey, Julio Urias, probably not the dream start that he wanted, but he gets through 2 2/3. We heard some of your discussion with Rick Honeycutt. Did you get the feeling that Honeycutt had high expectations for tonight, or was he a little bit cautious about what Urias could do in his first start?
I think the goals were that the kid was just going to go in there and stay within himself and stick with his, mechanics and his delivery and kind of see what happened. He didn't set it up like he had huge expectations for him, but I mean, I certainly don't think that they expected this. The kid had 27 scoreless innings, and it's kind of a bummer for him that it didn't work out that way. But still, there were some pretty. You saw the composure there. He threw that 1 ball away and comes back on the next pitch to strike out David Wright. Like he didn't totally lose his mind when he got into those tough spots. So that's a promising thing.
Hi, Lindsey, it's Will. Hi. How's it going? I'm curious too. That has to be something they'd almost kind of expect for him. They know he has great stuff, but they would not bring up a 19-year-old, even if the situation where they needed him, if they didn't feel like he had the makeup to be able to handle even a little bit of adversity. Is that something that they kind of saw coming in? That even if he got knocked around a little bit, this was not a guy that was going to fold?
I think so. I think his demeanor has been one of the things that they've been most impressed with. We actually talked to Ron Darling pregame, and he said that he saw him pitch when he was 17 in Mexico, and he said if he didn't know that the kid was that as young as he was, he would have thought he was a 30-year-old with 10 years of big league experience, just with the command and the poise on the mound and his body language and what he looked like actually throwing the baseball. So I think that they think the kid believes he's a big league pitcher and he believes he belongs here, and hopefully that this doesn't end up being like more than just a blip on his radar.
Mets batting here in the bottom of the 4th. Lindsey, the reason he had to pitch this game was, of course, this Dodgers team is banged up a little bit, but some of those guys are making their way back, right? We're going to see Hyunjin Ryu soon, and things are looking up, I guess, as far as this Dodgers pitching staff goes and their health overall.
Honeycutt did say that Ryu pitched he pitched Wednesday. He pitched 4 innings, 55 pitches. Very promising. He looked good. He's going to have to make 2 more starts down there before he comes back, so that's another 10 days-ish, I think. Brandon McCarthy is recovering from Tommy John surgery. He had a little bit of a setback about 10 days ago, but he's back on track. Pitched live to hitters today, and we'll be back around the All-Star break. Alex Wood they pushed him back 3 days with this tricep tweak that he got while hitting against St. Louis, but he's scheduled to make his start against the Cubs on Monday. The only one who's not really getting ready to come back is Anderson, who had that disc surgery that they had said was going to be 3 to 5 months, and it's looking like it's going to be more like 5 because he's at 3 now and hasn't even begun to throw yet. But those other 3 guys should be, coming back in a timely fashion.
All right, great stuff, Lindsey. Thanks so much from the ballpark. As Asdrubal Cabrera now at the plate. Curtis Granderson strikes out looking to lead things off here in the 4th inning. It remains 3-1. The Mets in front. Chris Hatcher back out after he got Jacob deGrom to kind of get Urias off the hook a little bit with the bases loaded. His numbers could have been much worse if Hatcher doesn't get deGrom.
Yeah, absolutely. Hatcher did an absolutely great job coming in that situation. I just saw an incredible stat from Ken Gernick, our Dodgers beat writer. None of the hitters that Urias faced swung at the first pitch tonight, which I think is interesting. It probably goes more to the fact that he wasn't really hitting the plate than I think the fact they were afraid to go after him, because we saw, he threw, 42 strikes and 39 balls, as I said. That's not a great ratio.
Well, it's also worth noting, too, that they, like us, are wondering what they're even going to see from this guy. I think if you go out and swing at the first pitch against the 19-year-old that we have no StatCast numbers we've never actually watched before, that almost seems like a dereliction of duty. You have to kind of look at him a little bit.
And then once the game's going and you're seeing seeing that those balls, like you said, aren't getting over the plate, then the discussion's had, hey, we're not swinging at the first pitch, because a lot of balls heading into the plate. All right, 3-1, bottom 4. 2 outs quickly.
I think one more thing that Lindsay was talking about that's a little bit of a bummer. Brett Anderson, to see him kind of push back. Looks like we probably aren't going to see him this year. He is not forget just kind of like the nice comeback story is. I think a guy whose reputation as just a guy that's injured all the time is frustrating to really likable guy we are root for because of social media. Brett Anderson is definitely at the top, along with McCarthy, is at the top of that list.
I don't want to overstate this too much, but do you have any idea how much money this costs him? Right? Because if you think about the starting pitching market this winter, it was already going to be just atrocious, and now Strasburg's not even there. There's a very good argument to make that Brett Anderson was going to be the best starting pitcher on the market, because he's probably going to use his opt-out, I believe he has, and now he can't. He's going to miss the entire season. He'll get an invite or maybe like a 1-year deal, because he was coming off a very good season last year for the Dodgers.
We could have had a Brett Anderson-Rich Hill bidding war for the top of the free agent market. What a strange vortex have we been sucked into a different reality.
Yeah, the hot stove sizzling. Here's David Wright with 2 outs. He'll send it deep to center field, and that one is going to get out of the ballpark for the captain. So suddenly a red-hot David Wright as far as the power goes. Solo shot here. The Mets get that 1 run back and lead it 4-1.
I'm going to assume, I haven't seen the data yet, but when I said earlier that Chris Hatcher had allowed the same amount of 100-mile-an-hour balls this season as he did last season, I'm going to guess that's changed a little bit.
This would be what we were talking about.
105 miles an hour. That was a pitch, not right down the middle, but pretty close. It's down and inside. That is exactly where David Wright wants the ball, because we've talked a lot about David Wright this year. He is a completely different hitter. He only swings at strikes, which is great. I mean, he's striking out more, which is not great, but he's swinging at pitches in the zone, and when he hits them, he's hitting them hard. His exit velocity is up about 3 miles an hour from last year, and you just can't leave a pitch like that. That's a cutter from Chris Hatcher, and it's 93 miles an hour, which is good, but the location not so much.
And Wright locked in right now. That's 3 straight games with a home run for the captain.
It's not enough of a contrast either to his Wade Davis.
That's right. So you're exactly right. That's the issue.
There's another look over the 380 sign and the Geico sign. Jock Peterson just watching it go. So here's Cespedes. And there's the swing from Wright.
Yeah, that's a fine-looking swing. We're all worried that the next swing is going to be the one that eventually...
Don't you almost cringe when you think about his back condition?
Yes.
When you see him
I mean, that looks like a 2016.
That's a vintage swing right there. Now, it helps to have a hittable pitch right down the pipe. But.
Yet a week ago, he couldn't play in a game because the back just never got there.
There's the infuriating part about Chris Hatcher.
Yeah.
He leaves the cutter in the middle of the zone and gets crushed, and then he comes back with a high strikeout, high velocity, high spin, and just makes Yoenis Cespedes take a really awkward looking swing.
Makes one of the best hitters in baseball right now look terrible.
This is why you can't get rid of him. He's got a 6.5 ERA, but then he does that, and you're like, oh, you're so close to being so good.
So the Mets get one back, 4-1. Let's take a look back at the 2015 NLDS between these two clubs. We're going to look at that. We saw Jacob deGrom in that series and what he did in games 1 and 5. Now let's take a look at the series as a whole.
What everybody is talking about is the pitching matchup here in game 1.
Swing and a miss, make it 13. What a performance. Base hit, David Wright. Mets 3 and the Dodgers nothing. The New York Mets have beaten Clayton Kershaw.
Wow, did Chase Utley go in hard at second as the tying run scores.
Here's the pitch. Line drive, base hit into right field. The score is Utley. Kendrick is at third, and he is being sent home. Here comes Kendrick. Throw to the plate, and he is safe. And the Dodgers take a 4-2 lead.
Series tied at a game apiece. Chase Utley was suspended by Major League Baseball for 2 games. He immediately appealed. So Chase Utley is in uniform tonight.
Number 26, infielder Chase Utley. There's a reason why he is pitching.
Curtis Granderson delivers.
And the Mets have come right back to take a 4-3 lead. Forget about it. Home run, Yoenis Cespedes.
Clayton Kershaw, his second postseason win. And the Dodgers fight off elimination. We are heading to Game 5 in Los Angeles.
Swinging a drive deep to right, down the line, and there it goes. Daniel Murphy, a home run, has given the Mets the lead here in the 6th inning.
Noah Syndergaard bravely going where he's never been before.
Amelia, 1 strike away. The 0-2 pitch, swung on and missed, strike 3, put it in the books. The New York Mets are going to the National League Championship Series.
Welcome back to MLB Plus, presented by T-Mobile. As we move ahead to the 5th inning here, it looked like the Dodgers were kind of building a little momentum, but the Mets get one back thanks to a David Wright solo shot. And we pick things up in the top of the 5th. Jacob deGrom back out there with a 4-1 lead.
I feel like DeGrom's done his best pitching with runners on tonight.
It's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy because he's put those runners on base. But you're right, he's been able to get out of those jams. I mean, only 1 run with a lot of guys on base. That's pretty good.
Here's Yasmani Grandal. He singled back in the 3rd.
We talked a lot about Grandal, who he had the shoulder injury, and that kind of torpedoed the rest of his season, and he's had a hard time this season. But it's not just the shoulder injury. He started the season on the DL with a sore forearm. He missed a couple of games with a foot injury. He's had concussion injuries in the past. He's blown out his knee. A lot of that's just from being a catcher. But he's a guy who has had a lot of trouble staying healthy, and it's too bad because when he's healthy, he's a really talented player, great framer, really good hitter when he's healthy for a catcher. You can see why the Dodgers went after him in the Kemp trade, but he's just really had a hard time staying healthy for more than a couple weeks at a time.
And it really is a waste, too. He's the type of guy that is so much more valuable as a catcher. Like, not that he's a bad hitter, but because he's such a good framer and because you've got that kind of offensive catching, you'd love to have him be for an American League team where he could DH every once in a while and relax a little bit and maybe teach him first base, but he's so valuable as a catcher, you kind of can't do it. You have to kind of just live with the injury.
Right, and he does play a little bit of first base, but not on this team because, Gonzalez is there. And he was really funny when he was with the Padres. There was the whole stories about how the Padres pitchers refused to pitch to him. They didn't like him behind the plate. Like 3/5 of the rotation said, I don't want to pitch to that guy. So he kind of got this reputation. And then he comes to the Dodgers last year, and Zach Greinke's like, I love this guy. All I want to do is pitch to this guy. When Greinke had that scoreless inning streak of 40-something innings, almost all of them were to Yasmani Grandal, and he swore by it. So it's amazing to see how you can kind of go from that reputation to this reputation in the span of a year.
Zach Greinke is a very nice character witness.
Yeah, that's the thing. I will take Greinke's word over just about anybody else's word in that regard.
Without question.
Chris Hatcher's night comes to an end as we have a pinch hitter here, Enrique Hernandez. And he'll rip one to short. Nice scoop by Asdrubal Cabrera there on the tough hop and the throw over to first.
We talk about Cabrera maybe not having a lot of range, but you didn't need a lot of range on that one. You just need to be able to duck.
Yeah, no, he's actually got pretty good reaction, but he's almost the new Derek Jeter in some sense.
Here's a StatCast replay of that one, powered by Amazon Web Services. This is Jacob deGrom. We've seen him the good and the bad. Here's the strikeouts from deGrom.
Striking out throw at him at the start of the game there. And, Kendrick obviously has been off to a really tough start, but look at the perceived velocity. You add another mile or so there because he's got these long limbs. He gets out in front of it. It makes it look even harder to the hitter than it actually is going to be. The same thing here. Good spin on it, and we've seen this deGrom last year. He's not quite as dominating, but pretty close. And I think this is one of the better outings I've seen from him all year.
Yeah, that Cabrera play, it really is all about reaction. You don't need range. That's it. I mean, his weak spot is his range, but if you can react like that, it doesn't really matter what your range is.
So top of the order, here's Chase Utley. Utley so far on the day walked in his first at-bat, and then he had that sacrifice fly back in the 3rd, driving in the Dodgers' only run of the game.
So can we agree we are officially past the we're going to throw a Chase up
stage?
So. If it hasn't happened by now, I know that Jose Bautista, part of the reason he was so angry is they waited till the end of that series.
The end of their season series.
Right. And then 4 games into it. And I think, by now, if it hasn't happened, it's not going to happen. We can hopefully.
Unless they're saving it up. Unless they're saving it up for Sunday.
You can hear the crowd there. As he takes a strike, 2-2, the count to Utley.
I have to say, I doubt Chase Utley has heard a boo or a bad thing said in his name in 10 years. I don't know how you could if you're Chase Utley, because he's been hearing it not just here, but everywhere. Like Utley is, I mean, listen, the Mets fans obviously dislike him the most, but this has always been an aggressive player. This has always been. You talked earlier about if he's on your team, you love him, but if you don't, you really, really don't like that guy. And I think he is the epitome of that. And I think it's actually obscured just how good he's been throughout his career.
His peak, his 5-year peak, is among the best of any second baseman. I think he's probably not going to have the longevity to get into the Hall of Fame, but for a good span of 5 years or so, between, I'm going to throw out like 2006 to 2010, in that range, he was elite every single year.
Won a World Series in there.
It hurt that he was called up so late.
That's all, right, exactly right.
Here's another look at that great play by Cabrera earlier in the inning. The one hop.
106 miles an hour at 6 degrees. So there's the issue, right? Didn't get it high enough, and then unfortunately right to the shortstop.
You can hit it at that angle in a lot of places, though, and be okay.
Well, so you got to get to what we're going to work on this year is you got to get to that third dimension, right? The left to right
through
dimension.
the wall. Right?
Because if you hit something that's right to the center fielder, that's an out. If you hit that exact same ball but on the foul line, that's going to be a hit. So it's really all about the velocity, the height, and then also the left-right angle.
But if you're at 6 degrees like that, you have to hit it that hard.
You have to hit it that hard, and in the right spot.
Here's Corey Seager. He struck out in the first, grounded into a double play back in the third. DeGrom tonight, 3 walks and a hit by pitch, and there's a single to left by Seager. Not hit hard, but he put it in the right place.
Yeah, that is what we call the donut zone, where if you hit the ball harder, it's actually worse for you because it goes to the outfield. You'd rather it be hit softer at that angle, hard enough to get over the infielder, but then you drop it right in between the infielder and outfielder. It's a hit almost every single time.
Let's take another look at it. Not good wood on the baseball, but it'll do.
He was late on it. Didn't actually hit that ball very well at all, but
that's baseball. And that's really what makes the StatCast stuff really interesting, more than it would be in any other sport, is that you have that. It's great that a guy hit 110 miles an hour with perfect launch angle and it went 480 feet, but that's fun too.
There are some combinations, I want to say, like 63 miles an hour at any launch angle, you hit about 200. But if you hit 63 miles an hour at a 35-degree launch angle, you hit about 900. Because that's the bloop, right? That's the bloop that goes over the infield.
Only you could plan it that way.
Well, that's the thing. It's not really a skill. And if you could actually show that it was a skill, then they'd have the outfielder playing with it.
Little ground ball to Asdrubal Cabrera. A much easier play for him that time, and he makes the play to second base for the out. As we cruise along here, we head to the bottom of the 5th inning. The Mets continue to lead this one 4-1 over the Los Angeles Dodgers, and Julio Urias was out of this game after 2 2/3 innings, as we welcome you back into the studio. But Jesse Sanchez has been at the ballpark, and he got the chance to spend some time with the Urias family while he was there as well. And we're going to welcome in Jesse right now. Jesse, a big night, obviously, for Urias and the family. What was the vibe that you got talking to them? How excited were they to see this 19-year-old take a big league mound?
I mean, they were overwhelmed. They talked about the travel. They live in Culiacan, Mexico, which is kind of southern Mexico. So they traveled from Culiacan to Mexico City late last night, and they traveled all night from Mexico City to New York. They arrived around 6 a.m., and they said everybody was really still fired up except for their baby. Their 6-year-old, Julio has a 5-year-old sister, so she was the only one who was really exhausted, but everybody was really excited. They checked into this Manhattan hotel. It was really nice. They enjoyed it. Their son came by, gave hugs, and it was kind of like old times. They kind of reminisced a little bit about the things they'd done in the past to get to this point. And then Julio kind of flipped the switch. He went all business. And I think that's one thing that it's impressing them as parents, is they're seeing their little boy grow up. So, we talk about it from a baseball perspective, how he's mature beyond his years and that kind of stuff. But from a parent's perspective, they see it too. And it's kind of funny to see their reaction because, it's kind of bittersweet to see their kid grow up into a man, and he's only 19 years old. I mean, the mom told me a story today. It's like, Julio, how can you handle all this? Your 13-year-old brother gives you a hard time, and you come complaining to me about how your little Carlitos, won't stop picking on you. But then you have to handle all these big league situations, you know, they just laugh, you know. So it was really cool, you know, to chat with them. They're really excited. They were in batting practice today. They're sitting here in the family section right now. And, you know, they're just kind of taking it all in and kind of living the dream along with their son.
Yeah, Jesse, hi, it's Will. I'm always curious with this because, you know, he's been on the road and they've been there. Like, forget just his first game. They probably haven't even seen him in a while. There's just a reunion just between them, and then you're like, oh, get out there and pitch. When was the last time they had even seen him?
You know, it's been several months. I think they might have checked in with him during spring training. You know, they come up, they drive up from Mexico to see him. And that's, you know, it's funny you bring that up because his mom was expecting, you know, some big kind of a joyful, tearful reunion. And yes, he was smiling and but he was also a little stoic. And he was also saying, hey, Mom, I have a job to do. And, you know, I got to go home. And I got to go back to the hotel, I have to shower, I got to get on the bus, you know. And she was kind of joking, like, what happened to my little boy? He was supposed to jump into my arms after seeing his mommy. You know, actually, the mom said she cried yesterday because she said, you know, my son, he's just a teenager and he's over there in New York with all these grown men, you know. But once she spent a little time with him this morning, she goes, you know, he's not a little boy anymore. And, you know, he can handle it over there.
Jesse, he's obviously so precocious at a young age. Is this all natural talent, or does he come from a baseball family? How did he get to this point so young?
You know, he started playing baseball at 5 years old. His dad is a coach. His dad is actually like one of the prominent figures down there in Culiacan, Mexico, as far as developing youth and that type of stuff. So he's always been playing baseball since he was 5 years old. He played against kids, you know, when he was 5 years old. He's one of those guys, plays a 5-year-old kid playing with 8-year-old, an 8-year-old playing with 12-year-olds. And the father told me today, you know, my kid has always said he wanted to be a major leaguer. But once he became 13, 14 years old, and he saw that he was throwing 88, 89, he's like, hey, man, we might be onto something. You know, so it's really just a bunch of hard work. I talked to the father today. His name is Carlos, and he said, you know, we worked so hard. He loved this. And, you know, he told his mom, I'm going to get you that degree you want, but the degree is going to be a Major League Baseball degree. I know you want me to go to college, but I'm going to get you a different type of title. And, you know, he made his debut today, so, you know, they're all smiles.
Yeah, and I guess he makes his debut today to a certain extent. There's your diploma. You're a big leaguer, kid. But it must be tough, Jesse, because you said it. He signed as a 16-year-old. They had to say goodbye to him, basically, for a good chunk of years back when he was 16. So they've had a lot of these reunions over the last few years, obviously in the off season and stuff. But did they mention how much from year? I know you said he's all grown up, but from year to year, how he's matured?
Oh, obviously. I mean, I think he's really come a long way. And, you know, you talk to the people in Dodgers organization, they'll say how he's really matured, how he's progressed as a player. You talk to his teammates. I remember being in the Dodgers clubhouse in spring training this year, and they talked about how, yes, he's a teenager, but, you know, he conducts himself as a major leaguer. He conducts himself as a man out there. He's not like a little boy. So he's progressed on the field, off the field. I think that's part of the reason why the Dodgers are comfortable, you know, to throw me in the fire, so to speak, in New York against a team that was in the World Series. They felt like this kid's demeanor, they felt like his maturity, they felt like he had the makeup, and obviously the stuff to get him out. So I know a lot of people wondering why the Mets. You know, obviously the Dodgers needed somebody, but the Dodgers felt like he had the makeup to get there. And I think speaking with the parents today, you kind of understand where that comes from them. They're a humble, hardworking people, and they just really want their son to do well, and they instill this kind of focus on, you know, creating challenges and accomplishing those goals. And, you know, this was his goal, and he did it.
All right, great stuff, Jesse. Jesse spending the day with the Urias family. Good stuff from him as Joe Blanton takes over here for the Dodgers. Gets a strikeout of Neil Walker. That's not going to be a strikeout, though. That one's going to get out of the ballpark for the Mets. That's Juan Lagares, 3 for 3 on the day. He goes the other way with a home run off of Joe Blanton, the center fielder that's all glove can hit.
I've been saying all year long, they got to find a way to get him out in center field more often. All he has to do is just be competent with the bat. He's been considerably more than that. And I think if he's going to hit like this, and they are going to have to figure out a way, and it might come at the expense of Curtis Granderson. Someone's got to play right field. Granderson's not much of a defender. He's not hitting that much this year. Juan Lagares has to play.
Well, if you do that, is that Cespedes in right field? Do you put him out there? Do you have to look in Conforto?
Yeah, no, you have to put Lagares in right field, which seems the most inefficient use of resources. But Conforto doesn't play right field. You know, Cespedes should play right field.
With the arm.
With the arm. That
right?
seems a perfect fit, but he's never done it. He says he's not comfortable doing it. It's hard to do it in the middle of the season, I get. But, you know, you got to get Lagares in.
There's another ball driven the other way. That one will stay in the ballpark as Yasiel Puig takes care of it. Kevin Plawecki sending one out to right field. Joe Blanton takes over this inning, 2-2, 2.66 this season, 22 games already.
Zombie Joe Blanton, and I mean that with love. He actually has already retired. I'm serious. He retired in 2014. He didn't play the rest of the year, and he came back as a reliever because he was a fourth starter type, kicked around, was on some of those good Phillies teams with Oakland for a while. He was actually with the Dodgers in 2012. And he came back as a reliever, and he was with Kansas City for a little bit last year, and then he went to the Pirates. And Ray Searage, the Pirates pitching coach, got his hands on him. That's a story I could repeat about 12 different pitchers.
Seriously, hit the magic Searage button.
And unlike a lot of starters who go to the bullpen, he didn't suddenly get this enormous boost in velocity, because that's always the story. He started throwing his slider a lot. He didn't really throw it up until a couple years ago. Now he throws it 42% of the time, and it's really good, and especially against righties. Righties just cannot hit it. $1.64 overall this year.
It's almost like Cahill a little bit, the Cubs.
Yeah, exactly right.
All right, that's going to do it for the Mets here as they go quickly despite the home run. They lead this one 5-1 over the Dodgers.
Several years of research and development were realized in 2014 with the debut of MLB.com's StatCast, the first ever reliable measurement of every play on a baseball field. Pioneered by MLB Advanced Media and debuted with prototypes at the 2014 All-Star Game, League Championship Series, and World Series, StatCast's roots can be traced back roughly a decade earlier to MLBAM's introduction of pitch tracking. Pitch tracking delivered a never-before-seen wealth of detailed information regarding every pitch thrown in the major leagues. Though a bold move at the time, today, pitch tracking technology is ubiquitous throughout broadcast television and baseball's digital products. But despite the data compiled on pitching, never before have there been reliable defensive statistics. The goal with StatCast was to leverage the technology to ensure that defense could be quantified and that a more complete picture of our game be made available to fans. To that end, all 30 ballparks have been outfitted with two distinctly different but collaborative technologies to allow for the data capture, optical tracking, and radar tracking. High-definition video camera arrays spaced 15 meters apart to capture stereoscopic video, and a 3D Doppler radar system which captures 2,000 samples per second of the entire baseball field. By marrying the data from each of these systems, it is now possible to scientifically quantify the skills and talents of players on the field using new player performance metrics.
From one of the families.
Welcome back to MLB Plus, powered by Amazon Web Services. You see the radar there. That's up behind home plate at Citi Field, part of the StatCast experience. You just saw the video explaining how it all works. It's really complicated. The video does a pretty good job of kind of making you understand it, but there's radar involved, there's cameras involved, and it's pretty cool stuff. And nobody knows more about those numbers than Mike Petriello right here.
No pressure, though. I did actually take a tour of our facility in Arizona, and I can tell you there are two different systems, one for tracking the baseball and one for tracking all the players, and it's really super cool, and you're not wrong, it's very complicated.
There's the other camera that helps out. There's three little cameras in there. Adrian Gonzalez leading things off for the Dodgers as we continue to bring you the MLB Plus, the StatCast coverage of this game between the Dodgers and the Mets. That one's off to the third base side. That'll get into the seats for a foul ball. So Adrian Gonzalez grounded out in the second. He singled in the fourth inning. Jacob deGrom, 89 pitches here in the top of the sixth.
So he was at one point touching 97 miles an hour. He was kind of, I think, living in the 94 to 96 mile an hour range, which is pretty good. So far in this inning, 92 and 92. Obviously, sixth inning, he's up to 89 pitches. Looked pretty good right there. But,
still effective.
Something to keep an eye on. The velocity is it's starting to decline a little bit.
So deGrom takes care of Gonzalez to start things off. That'll bring up Kendrick.
You know, I loved talking to Jesse about Urias and being with the family all that day. I still love the idea. I love to tell the story about how his mother was disappointed that he wasn't happier to see her, that he was just busy about work. I'm trying to imagine the worst thing you could, I'm not a former professional athlete, but I'm trying to imagine the worst thing you could possibly do when you're 19 years old in your first game is when you see your mother in front of all of your new teammates, jump into your mother's arms and say, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, mommy." It feels like something that Chase Utley would not enjoy. It's probably the best way to put it, but I think it speaks once again to how kind of mature that kid is.
You saw another look of that strikeout. Adrian Gonzalez, 5 strikeouts now in the game for DeGrom. Yeah, can you imagine the teammates? Aw.
Yeah.
Look at the rookie.
There's a kangaroo court fine, I think, coming for that one.
Fly ball out to left center field. Cespedes takes care of that one. Has a little discussion with Lagares. Lagares going, I'm the center fielder tonight.
He's saying, I'm the one who just hit the home run. So.
Continue to check out the action here, Mets and the Dodgers, as we take a look at our T-Mobile Greater Coverage camera from behind home plate. See, it's a full house at Citi Field.
It's funny, even when DeGrom has had runners on, he's never seemed in deep trouble. Like, he always seemed to be in a little bit of control.
How much of that is the Dodger offense? Has been a little underwhelming.
I was going to say maybe this would be his final inning, but he makes quick work. 94 pitches now as he gets a strikeout and a couple of flyouts, does Jacob DeGrom. And we head to the bottom of the 6th. A quick frame for Jake, and that'll keep him going in this one. As we head to the bottom of the 6th frame, let's take another look at that fly ball. It's off the bat of Jock Peterson. He sends it out to right field. Just missed. Under it a little bit. What do you think on the launch angle?
I'm going to say something like 60 degrees. He wanted that one, clearly.
Like we said, his first pitch, you don't see Peterson's not really a guy that swings early in the count that often. He was clearly looking for a certain pitch, and he's pretty frustrated that he missed it.
Anthony DiComo continues to take in the sights and sounds at Citi Field. Anthony, thanks a lot for joining us again. We saw David Wright go deep earlier in the game, his 3rd home run in 3 games for him. And it's a week in which we saw not that long ago he couldn't play because of the back. Talk about day in, day out covering this guy that has to go through so much to get on the field, and then we see him in a hot streak like he's in right now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I think we all kind of underestimate, because it's hard not to when you don't have the first-hand experience of going through what David Wright is going through. I think we all underestimate just how much he has to do to get ready to play, just how much of his daily challenge, forget facing some of the best pitchers in the league and going out there, and just how hard hitting is in general, but to go out and do it based on what he has to go through on a daily basis. He shows up to the park 3 hours, he shows up to the park much more than 3 hours, but his pregame preparation starts 3 hours before the game. That's stretching, physical therapy, in addition to all the batting practice and regular fielding work. So it's very much a go as we see, go as you go along for David Wright, and he's doing his best to make the most of it. And I think people get frustrated because the production hasn't totally been there. What fans have come to expect from David Wright over the years. They say he's healthy, he's out there, he should be producing. Well, now the weather's warming up. Who knows? Maybe it's getting a little easier for him to get into that mode where he can produce on a more regular daily basis, and maybe we're seeing the beginning of those fruits. The Mets would love it if that's the case.
Anthony, it's Will. We've seen a big game for Lagares tonight. Obviously, they've been considering some of the issues that particularly with Matt Harvey and some of the pitching staff. There's a much, in particular with the defense, they're a much better defensive team if they have Lagares in the outfield. Is there a situation, Lagares only needs to hit a certain level really to make himself valuable in the outfield? How are they going to figure that out with all the defensive outfield problem they have? What does he need to hit to stay in the lineup on a regular basis? And if so, who steps out?
Well, unfortunately for Juan Lagares, there's not much he can do that's going to get him playing time that's not already his. I think it depends more upon some of those other guys. Coming into the season, it was, can Michael Conforto hit lefties? Can he be out there against lefties? So far, he's had pretty limited opportunities. He didn't look so good against Madison Bumgarner. He's gotten some hits against some other guys. But I think Conforto's going to be out there sometimes. Juan Lagares is going to get the rest. Now, we're getting into a spot where, hey, maybe Curtis Anderson's the guy who should sit. He's 35 years old. 35 years old, as is, and could probably use more rest than the average player. But he's been struggling. He's been scuffling a little bit. He really hasn't hit left-handers much at all over the past 2 seasons. So I think the Mets are going to continue to find ways to get Juan Lagares in the lineup every time they face a lefty, which they're not seeing Chris Sale anymore on Monday, but they still got a bunch of them coming up between the Dodgers and the White Sox these next few days. The matter of Juan Lagares is, can he get in there more consistently against a right-handed pitcher? I think right now the answer is no. Even if he catches fire right now in this run of lefties, there's just too many other guys between Granderson, Conforto. Obviously, you're not taking Cespedes out of there. And every once in a while, you're going to want to start Alejandro De Aza to get him some at-bats. So there's just not a lot of time for Juan Lagares besides those lefty starts. But for him, he's found a little bit of a nice niche, I think. Starting against left-handers, coming in, playing most games at least as a defensive replacement. Maybe he gets in that bat or two there for Conforto late in games. And, hey, it's a role that so far is working, and I don't think the Mets are going to stretch it right now.
All right, thank you so much, Anthony. Anthony Tacoma, our T-Mobile Greater Coverage reporter at Citi Field, bringing us the latest on this Mets team. And Anthony's there every day as our Mets reporter. Good stuff about David Wright and also Lagares. As Joe Blanton, good start to this frame. He gets the fly ball from Jacob deGrom, comes back, strikes out Curtis Granderson. So Joe Blanton, the zombie, 2 up, 2 down, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, slider, right? And that's really what he's all about. This kind of second stint of his career. He's no longer a starter. He's a reliever. He's not really throwing that much harder, but he's all about that slider. And he's also dropped his arm slot a little bit. You know, he used to be a little bit more over the top. Now he's a little bit more of kind of a 3/4. That gives the slider a different kind of feel. And you saw it right there. You know, he's actually shockingly effective this year for Joe Blanton.
I'm still never going to believe him when he says he's retired now. He's come back. He'll never come back.
The next time it's like, sure, whatever.
Whatever.
And he's great. Hey, let's take a listen to Vin Scully and one of your favorite baseball moments.
Ray? People will come, Ray. They'll come to Iowa for reasons they can't even fathom. They'll turn up your driveway, not knowing for sure why they're doing it. They'll arrive at your door as innocent as children, longing for the past. Oh, of course, we won't mind if you look around, you'll say. It's only $20 per person, and they'll pass over the money without even thinking about it. For it's money they have, and peace they lack. And they'll walk out to the bleachers, sit in shirt sleeves on a perfect afternoon. They'll find they have reserved seats somewhere along one of the baselines, where they sat when they were children and cheered their heroes. And they'll watch the game, and it'll be as if they dipped themselves in magic waters. The memories will be so thick, they'll have to brush them away from their faces. People will come, Ray. The one constant through all the years, Ray, has been baseball. America has rolled by like an army of steamrollers. It has been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again. But baseball has marked the time. This field, this game, it's a part of our past, Ray. It reminds us of all that once was good and could be good again. Oh, people will come, Ray. People will most definitely come.
Back to MLB Plus, presented by T-Mobile. Of course, that great speech from the movie Field of Dreams, one of the all-time great baseball movies, and hearing Vin Scully utter the words is pretty much magic.
Having him do James Earl Jones, I'm ready to hear him voice Vader. Actually.
I would listen to him narrate my tax return.
Yes. I've got a pretty exciting tax return. So.
Jacob deGrom out there for his 7th inning of work, quickly retires Yasiel Puig. So here's Yasmani Grandal. He'll bounce one to the right side.
This is an excellent way to get DeGrom through it.
Really?
Throw.
2 pitches, 2.
This is a little league. This is a 6-year-old inning.
Do I hear 8?
Listen, there are some things I like to think I know about baseball, and many more things I don't. But I know this: this next batter will not swing at the first pitch.
He will put the bat on the ground.
Really.
Here's that last ground ball to first base. Grandal did not look comfortable in that swing, that's for sure. So 96 pitches for DeGrom here, 2 down in the 7th. Carl Crawford pinch hitting in the pitcher spot.
How many years does Crawford have left?
7.
7, right. They're like dog years.
I don't have it in front of me. He signed a 7-year deal that started in, I want to say, 2011. So
it's a while still.
Yeah, I think another year or 2. Carl Crawford actually was a pretty valuable Dodger for the first 2 years he was there. The first 2 years, 13 and 14. He was 13% above average, and he had some really big hits in the playoffs this year. A couple home runs. I think he set or tied a Dodger record for a playoff hitting streak. And the last 2 years, just injuries nonstop. He's been a low average hitter. Even his once vaunted outfield defense has kind of fallen off. So it's been a rough stretch for Carl Crawford.
And he's a guy that you knew wasn't probably going to age well, just the way he plays the game with so much speed, and he goes down swinging there. So Jacob DeGrom comfortably into the bottom of the 7th. So let's take a look around the rest of Major League Baseball tonight. We're enjoying this game, 5-1 Mets, but there's a full slate of action around the league. So let's check in on the other games. We start with the day game at Wrigley. It was Phillies and Cubs, bottom 4, already 2-1 Cubs, and that's David Ross. And that's career home run number 100 for the old guy. Cubs go up 5-1. He gets a curtain call, 6-2 winners. Cardinals and Nationals in Washington, top 3. Cardinals already up 1-0, and here goes Stephen Piscotty off Max Scherzer, who pitches great when he's not giving up home runs. There's a grand slam, 5-0. That one currently 6-2. Pittsburgh in Texas tonight. Top 2, Starling Marte and Cole Hamels, and Marte will hit the solo shot, puts the Bucks up 1-0. That's still the score in Arlington. AL East battle, Red Sox and Blue Jays north of the border. Bottom 4, Josh Donaldson. The infield single against Joe Kelly. That plates Russell Martin, 5-2. The Blue Jays leading that one. And finally, Orioles and Indians. Bottom 4, 3-run Orioles, but here comes Mike Napoli. Solo shot for Napoli, his 9th of the year to left field. 441 according to StatCast. 3-2 game at that point. Right now, though, they are tied up at Cleveland. Napoli looking a lot better on the home run trot than he did sliding into third on his triple the other day. I don't know if you guys saw that face plant.
I missed that one, but David Ross with his 100th home run, that's 1 home run for every year he's played in the big leagues. And that was a shot.
I was wondering, I knew we were going somewhere with David Ross and his age.
That was a shot. There was a no-doubter about that one, so good on him. He's been around for a long time.
It's good to have one. It's good for him to, like, of all those 100, I bet none of them felt better than that one, too. It was just perfect the minute he had it. David Ross doesn't strike me as much of a bat flipper, but that's one where I think he could have flipped the bat.
Yes, certainly not. But he got all of it. It left Wrigley as the Cubs just continue.
They're pretty good.
Continue to roll. All right, well, Jacob DeGrom's through 7 innings here in New York. We'll see whether or not he comes out for an 8 still under 100 pitches. But here's that last punch out in the 7th inning from DeGrom. See the elbow extension and
the spin on that. I love this camera. It's really cool that you can actually see the seams going like that. And Carl Crawford, swung right over it. That ball dove into the dirt. Really nice pitch.
Poor Crawford, he was at his best in the place where people saw him the least.
In Tampa Bay.
Yes.
He controlled the game. He could take over a game.
I think people often see him with Boston, Los Angeles, just not realize just how great he was.
If our friend and regular colleague Fernando Perez was here, he could actually. I know he played with Carl and has spoke highly of him.
I hear Fernando stole a base in the World Series.
Really? I've never heard him say that.
I also heard him with the Columbia.
0-1 the count to David Wright. Last time up, David Wright homered, his 3rd home run in his last 3 games.
This is Lewis Coleman in the game now, and just watching him pitch hurts my shoulder. Right, the next pitch he throws, just watch how across his body he throws.
does come straight
Very
across.
whippy. And, you know, for a righty, he doesn't throw that hard, like 89, 90 on his fastball. It's not really that fast for a righty, but he's all about the slider, you know, just like Joe Blanton was, and he's actually throwing the slider more than half the time this year. For the first time in his career, he's kind of gone to it as the main pitch. So, you know, he's got that, and he's got the fastball, and that's basically the Lewis Coleman story.
I mean, he's almost like a Roogie.
He is a bit of a Roogie.
That one gets away. We were just talking about Jacob deGrom. Let's take a look at a StatCast replay powered by Amazon Web Services of deGrom. That's coming in a bit. As David Wright digs in, ahead in the count, 3-1. Allen gets over 3-2.
That homer by Wright, we'll look at that later, but it really was vintage Wright.
And it went to opposite field. You know, right center, I mean, that's how you know you really got it.
That's a nice pitch.
And he goes down looking here, so the strikeout for Rice. One away in the 7th. Here's that look at that StatCast replay, powered by Amazon Web Services.
Look at the extension on that. Over 7 feet. I mean, that's really impressive. And that, you know, Will, you've said this before a couple times. Perceived velocity almost as, if not more important than regular velocity, because all that matters is what the hitter thinks it's going to look like.
It's like, to me, one of my, we all have our favorite StatCast things. That is actually my favorite, perceived velocity, because it makes actual velocity seem kind of pointless, doesn't it? Like, who cares what it actually is? All that matters is what it looks like to the hitter, and it looks so much faster.
The mound is always 60 feet, 6 inches away, but the pitcher is never releasing it from 60 feet, 6 inches away, and different pitchers release it from different spots.
It's not a contest to see how hard you can throw it. It's a contest to fool the hitter, which you think it may even be faster than it is.
And some pitchers release it almost from third base, like Lewis Coleman is doing right now.
Coleman gets ahead of Yoenis Cespedes with 1 out here in the 7th. Cespedes walked back in the 1st. He scored a run. He flew out in the 3rd, struck out in the 4th.
So we've talked about Cespedes being absolutely on fire this year. And Anthony DeComo, who we just talked to, wrote a really interesting piece on Mets.com where Cespedes basically said he had to get away from using the quote-unquote Cuban strike zone, right? Because in Cuba, the strike zone, it's wider. It's just the way umpires call it. And so it took him a couple of years in the big leagues to kind of get past that and realize where the strike zone actually was. And according to him, that's actually been a big part of why he's been so successful this year.
It's amazing. I mean, we'll see what happens with any potential rule changes, but amazing how much difference that one look and how the strike zone is called can make, not just with one guy, but with everyone.
Now you wonder, talking about Cespedes and that issue, is that where Puig's initial problem with chasing pitches out of the strike zone stems from, at least?
Yeah, I'm sure it's partially that. I think it's just his, you know, he's so much energy, he's so impatient. Like it's really hard for him to lay off that bad pitch. And it's not even that he needs to hit it and be successful with it. He just needs to ignore it. And that's the hardest thing in the world to do, because that pitch comes at you, it's looking like a fastball, and then it dives out of the strike zone. It's really hard to lay off that.
I remember the old joke about Wally Mopena, because of course he had all the power in the world, he could hit the ball anywhere, but he never saw a slider. He thought everything was a fastball,
right.
And that was the problem. That's why he didn't hit 8 homers.
There's Cespedes going down. We saw the shift they had on Cespedes, not necessary, as Coleman rings him up swinging. So here's Neil Walker. Walker with a big double back in the 1st inning, grounded back to the pitcher in the 3rd, and he struck out in the 5th.
So what day was the Dodgers 7th? Actually, Sunday?
Sunday.
It was Sunday.
So are they recovered from that yet? And how much is this going to set them back having to use all these innings?
It was Sunday because everybody skipped the 14th through 17th to watch Game of Thrones. Well, they have had a day off yesterday, so I think that helped them a little bit. They made a couple of roster moves, so they are mostly, you know, back up to speed. What does work in their favor is that on Sunday they have Kershaw going.
That's one of the many. Yeah, that is the key thing that you're getting out of Kershaw in that is bullpen relief.
Right.
Also a shutout.
You hope. you hope that at least 8 innings out of Cleveland. You hope you can just tell your bullpen forget it, because after New York they go right to Chicago. I mean, this is for the Cubs. This is a brutal road trip for the Dodgers. You almost figure if they come out of this at 500, that's probably a successful road trip.
T-Mobile providing greater coverage from this camera view. It's a nice look from the first base line. It was Sunday, and it was a 4 o'clock game, as we mentioned, because there's only the one 8 o'clock game on Sunday. And at one point, it looked like the 8 o'clock game may actually end before that game.
Yeah, the Cubs-Giants, as I remember. Yeah.
If you weren't watching the Dragons.
Right.
Hodor.
Hodor. Oh, the Hodor, yes.
That's a rope over to right field. That'll get in front of Puig for a 2-out base hit for Neil Walker.
Do you think old Puig, by which I mean younger Puig, would have gone for that ball no matter what? And maybe 5% of the time he'll get it and make an incredible play, and then the rest of the time he'll dive and it'll go to the fence and it'll be a triple. And just by pulling up on that, it shows a little bit about the player.
But it is, and that's good and all, but there's still this notion of, I love the Puig that goes crazy. And I understand, if I'm a Dodgers fan, I get it. You got to be a little bit more efficient out there. But man, for that one, and I'm watching as a fan of either team, for that 1 in 20 spot. I want the magnificent, and Puig is capable of giving us that.
You're right in both directions. I mean, that 17-inning game went 17 innings, in part because he did not advance on that bunt where he absolutely should have. And earlier that game, he made an ill-advised dive and turned a Will Myers bloop into a 3-run triple. But he also made a really heads-up base-running play in a different part of that game, and he drove in.
Yeah, the game running hit.
That was like maximum Puig all over that
His
game.
plus-minus is like no other. It's +3, -3. It's all over the place.
Even 17 innings could not contain him.
That's right.
There's a foul ball. All right, we've seen some home runs in this game, and one of them belonged to Lagares with a big drive. So here's the StatCast replay, powered by Amazon Web Service, of that one to the other field.
It's hitting to the right place in the park.
Yeah.
Hits it well, but...
I remember they did pull in the fences over the last year, too. So 99 miles an hour, and we've always said between 25 and 30 is just the sweet spot for home runs. You can hit it. If you hit it really hard, you can go above or below that, but 25 to 30 degrees is the perfect spot for home runs. That's exactly what he did, and even though it was only 98, which isn't necessarily elite, perfect.
How about the night Lagares is having overall, too? Couple of singles in that home run.
Hey, Joe Blanton, the opposite of DeGrom here with extension. He's not really adding anything, and it wasn't a terrible pitch, but Juan Lagares, really impressive to me.
Can't expect a zombie to give you that much extension.
Zombie Joe Blanton.
Really the only mistake Joe Blanton made, though.
Yeah, no,
it's very well.
He was a very interesting signing this offseason, and he's worked out pretty well for the Dodgers.
Lagares thought he was heading to first base, but they'll give him strike 2 instead. The count goes full. A 5-1 ball game. New York Mets leading the Dodgers here. Bottom 7 as Lagares sends it out to right field. In comes Puig, and he didn't have to dive. He takes it off his shoestrings. Made it look easy a little bit. Fair ground, I think. He takes care of it, so that'll do it here in the bottom of the 7th. We head to the 8th inning. The Mets in front, 5-1. As we wait for that inning to begin, let's take a look back at the best StatCast stuff from this whole week around the league.
Zobrist batting lefty. The pitch. Swing and a high drive to deep center. Going back span. Now he squares up at the edge of the warning track. Starts to stumble. Makes the catch. Falls over on his back. Right at the base of the 399-foot marker. Had that one all the way.
I do not know how he made that play. I mean, he almost fell down about 5 times going back on it. And we always talk about the carry that this ballpark will give a fly ball to straightaway center. It was carrying. Wow.
There goes number 8 off the bat of Mazzara. Look out in the upper tank. Goodbye.
Keep talking about some of the spots where Mazzara has hit a baseball. Last night he hit one into the upper deck about 3 rows back. That one went above the exits in right field. A hanger, and he's just crushed right into his wheelhouse.
Harper switching things up. No batting gloves here. Going to the black bat with a light handle. Swinging a long drive. Right field deep. This game's tied. It's off the facing of the 3rd deck. Oh my, a long home run for Harper. That almost hit Jackie Robinson's number 42. And the drought is over.
I mean, it's still going. I don't care what the distance says. It was on its way out still when it hit that Robinson facade. I guess the way you get pitched to is just scuffle for a little bit. Then the league thinks, hey, we got this guy.
Welcome back to MLB Plus. I'm Ashley Chavez. TBD on my title. I don't really know what to call myself yet. Tim, that is your job. I just want to say that I'm going to take a demotion. It's totally fine. I feel like the Queen situation got a little too big for me. I became a person I didn't like.
You beheaded several interns. It was a bit over the top.
I'm such a good person. But anyways, yes, I just want to remind you guys to be sure to join in the conversation by using hashtag MLB Plus so we can get to all your questions. Now let's get to these tweets. First one is from JM Harden writes, just saw a great StatCast video on MLB Plus explaining how the tech was developed and how it works. I was wondering how they did it. I'm glad we could be so informative. Next we have from Eric Roseberry, first MLB Plus broadcast I've watched this season. I'm a fan. Thank you so much. And lastly from Alex Friedman, for what it's worth, which is something I just found out is, in Urias' first ever AAA inning, he allowed 3 runs and threw 44 pitches. So, guys, it's happened before. Can
I say that Alex actually would be exactly the man to know what he's talking about? That is the broadcaster for the AAA Oklahoma City Dodgers.
Yes.
So he has firsthand expertise on Julio Urias.
I trust him.
Yeah, and I will work on that title, Ashley. I didn't know it was my job.
It's your job,
apologize.
Tim.
Nobody told me. Nobody told me. We'll get something together, though.
Okay.
Do not address the Queen directly. Or look into her eyes.
I know, now I feel like I can't. I'm not even allowed to speak. Okay. All right, this is MLB Plus presented by Amazon Web Services. As we pick things up in the top of the 8th, Jacob deGrom's night is over. Chase Utley will go down with the strikeout, and the Citi Field crowd will love that.
The 7 innings for deGrom, 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts.
That'll work.
That'll work.
Yeah,
that'll do. Coming up through a 96 in the first inning.
I love Blevins. He is the marionette that is
That
Blevins.
is an excellent description. I like that. He's what you call a loogie, right?
Blevins so far this year, real good, 1-0, 2.13 ERA. He's pitched 12 2/3 over 20 games, 14 strikeouts.
One of those guys, it's always amazing. All the limbs are moving in the same direction.
Barry Blevins, who missed most of last year, breaking his arm, falling off a curb, which is a true story.
It's a long way down.
Yeah. Used to throw a cutter and gave up on it a couple years ago. Starts throwing a curveball now, so he's really just a four-seam curveball kind of guy, and it's actually been pretty effective for him, especially against lefties. Over his career, lefties hitting a $199 against him.
And this might be the end of our conversation.
That lefty went the other way for a base hit. Corey Seager on first.
I'm glad we snuck in that little
I'm glad we got to talk about Jared Blevins.
I got to make my marionette joke, and now we can move on to the next guy.
It'll be Justin Turner up next with 1 out here, runner on for the Dodgers as they're running out of time here in this one. 5-1, they're down to the Mets.
Looks like Addison Reed, I believe, coming in. He's been really shockingly good for the Mets this year.
Well, we talked about this last week, too, how the Mets bullpen in general.
The best bullpen in baseball.
Which is what no one would have seen going into the season. Probably not even the Mets, exactly.
Yeah, Addison Reed, I mean, the numbers, every guy that comes out of there, the numbers are great. 2.25 ERA. He's got 27 strikeouts in 20 innings, 22 games for him as well.
What I like about Reed is he's completely changed who he is. He used to be this extreme fly ball type, and that's changed completely. He used to be 50% fly balls last year, 40% fly balls this year, 30% fly balls. So he's getting ground balls, but he's also increased his strikeouts. So basically his game is striking people out and getting ground balls, which is...
It's an effective way to
That'll
pitch.
do.
Yeah. As Reed warms up, kind of reset things here. 5-1 in the 8th. The Mets jumped out on the 19-year-old Julio Urias in the first inning. He got 2 outs. He looked in decent shape, but then they rallied hit after hit after hit really there for a little bit. They put 3 up in the first, and the Dodgers got on the board in the third, but then the Mets have tacked on a little bit. A home run from David Wright, home run from Lagares, and that's where we are right now. 1-4-0 for the Dodgers, 5-8-1 for the Mets. Let's take a look at Jacob deGrom's line from this one. He was good. 7 innings, 100 pitches. He gave up just the 3 hits. And the 3 walks got him in a little bit of trouble, but he had the 7 strikeouts to help himself out.
Yeah, threw harder than he had all season, and it's always been about velocity with him. I think people forget how rough the beginning of his year was. He was injured, he had a child, and then the child had some health issues that he had to deal with. He clearly did not have himself a regular spring training or start to the year. So the fact that his velocity was down to start the year, not at all surprising. Now, it's getting warmer, we're getting deeper into the season. He really seems like he's getting back to it.
I think you're seeing this with all the Mets, and you may, knock on wood, if you're a Mets fan, see this about Harvey at a certain level. As the weather gets warmer, a lot of those fastballs they're going to get that pop back a little bit. I think that you'll see that. You've seen it with deGrom tonight, and I think you'll see it across the board. For the Mets, a staff that I think clearly is fastball oriented.
And they'll be what we thought they were eventually, I guess, as we continue. You saw the numbers, and then you took a look there at the StatCast replays of a tremendous night from Jacob deGrom. That StatCast replay powered by Amazon Web Services. And there's a look at now and then, I guess.
First 7 starts over the last 2 seasons, and people are freaking out a whole lot more this year than they did last year, and it's really not warranted. And I think it's just because you look at the velocity, and that looks like it's down. But he's been getting by. He's actually been doing better than he did last year, and the velocity's ticking back up. I really don't have any worries about deGrom. Harvey, on the other hand, you're probably right about the velocity, but I don't really know that velocity's been his problem. The slider's just not been there. The command's not been there. I think people underrate the fact that he threw more innings immediately after a Tommy John surgery than anyone ever, and that is a really hard thing to come back from next year.
Is the other concern, or was the concern with deGrom maybe a year ago when he came out with those numbers, were people still like, okay, he was the rookie of the year, but he's still not an ace guy? Whereas now, you came into this year thinking he's our guy.
You're right. The expectations are totally different.
Right.
He was, we said this before, he was never really looked at this guy coming through the minors. He wasn't even, he was a shortstop at Stetson, right? Before he ended up becoming a pitcher. What he did last year was just so unexpected. And I think he can still be something close to that pitcher, but even if he's only 90% of that guy, still one of the best pitchers in baseball.
And you've got the rest of that staff around him, too. He doesn't necessarily have to be the #1 guy you've got when you got, particularly someone like Syndergaard, who's really stepping forward. And the way the Mats is pitching, he doesn't need to be that guy anymore.
And that's the thing about Harvey. Obviously, he's got to be better than he's been, but he could, in theory, be the 4th best starter on this pitching staff, which is insane.
Maybe it's getting a little windy at Citi Field. That one got away from Neil Walker. Tough play looking over his shoulder. You'd almost love to see the right fielder be able to come in on that ball and take it. So isn't that ideal, though, what the Mets, wouldn't you love if you're a Mets fan or if you're Terry Collins? None of these guys are our ace. They take turns being our ace, and they pick each other up because they're all that good.
Yeah, but I think right now, if they have a game 1 of the series, it's got to be Syndergaard, right? He's probably one of the 5 most dominating pitchers in baseball right now.
I don't think there's any question they're all #2 to Bartolo. Well, but the question is who is #2.
I thought that was a given. I didn't even think we had to mention it.
Of course.
We hadn't mentioned Bartolo yet tonight, so well done.
I'm so disappointed that we did not get Urias versus Bartolo tonight. All of the age jokes and stats we could have made,
43 this week, Bartolo Colon.
And coming off a good start.
Yep.
A good start is right.
So here's Justin Turner. He's worked the count full, thanks a little part to that foul ball that found the ground over there in foul ground. And they go around the horn and they get the double play. Nicely turned and a nice job over there at first base to scoop it from the dirt. So double play and the Dodgers go down here. We head to the bottom of the 8th. Ron Darling, of course, a big part of the Mets back in that 1986 team that we've talked about. He's actually seen a lot of Julio Urias in his time in the minors. Let's hear what he had to say about the 19-year-old.
Well, I was in Mexico, and some of my friends told me that there was this young kid. I think he was 16 or 17 at the time, pitching for the Mexican national team. He said, "You got to come watch this kid pitch." And I mean, at the time, I was trying to get my 16 and 17-year-old kids to clean their room, but he was getting like 40-year-old guys out. And I don't know, it's something about teenagers getting adults out in professional sports. It's just something we really like about that, and it's going to be fun to watch him. You know, he's an up-and-coming star. If they had not told me that he was 16 or 17 years old, I would have thought he was 30 years old and he had 10 years in the big leagues. That's how poised he was, unflappable, and an assortment of pitches. And I think that's inherent to Mexican baseball. The pitchers there learn to throw spin curveballs. They learn how to throw 4 or 5 different pitches at a very, very young age, and that's something they certainly don't teach here. So much more advanced than most of the American-born pitchers I see. I think sometimes being under the age curve is very good, because I think he's just going to be excited to be out there. There's a reason he's here at 19. That's he's fully developed in his gray matter. So I think he's going to be fine.
Great stuff there from Ron Darling. Obviously, he knows a thing or two about pitching. And we're going to head back to Lindsey Berra, who's at Citi Field. And Lindsey, you got a chance to talk to Ron Darling. He seemed really engaged talking about this youngster who he saw when he was even younger.
He did. He actually was really excited because he said he'd seen him pitch 5 times, and the Mets really haven't seen him at all. They have 2 guys who had faced him ever, and it was just 1 time. And Ron seemed pretty excited that he had all the information about Orioles, more than anyone here. But he was just really making the point that it is hard to pitch here as a teenager, but that this kid has just such a level head. He was so impressed with his poise. Said he was like a 30-year-old out there. And I'm sure that obviously this was a bit of a tough go for the kid tonight, but you know, that's why there's tomorrow, right?
Hey, Lindsey, it's Mike. I'm interested in some of the Mets injuries, especially Zach Wheeler. He's getting pretty close to coming back, right? What's his target date, and do you think he gets his rotation job back?
I think Zach Wheeler's target date is July, right? Because they are keeping him on the same timetable that they had Harvey on, where a lot of pitchers try to come back 12 months after Tommy John surgery. They had better luck with Harvey at about 16 months. And I think in July, Wheeler will be at about 15 and a half, 16. So they were looking at July 1st, and they said that he was, ready to hit that target. So we'll see him in another 6 weeks or so.
What about Duda? What are we hearing on Duda? How long is he out?
So Duda is interesting. He has a stress fracture in his back, which they've said 4 to 6 weeks is what that would take. But in 2011, David Wright had the same injury. He missed 9 weeks. And last season, Joe Panik from the San Francisco Giants, he had the same injury. He missed the last 2 months of the season and then a good chunk of the offseason rehabbing from that. So I think 4 to 6 is way short for Duda, and that the Mets are probably going to have to try to figure out what they're going to do at first base for a much longer period of time than that.
Great stuff, Lindsey. Thanks so much. Obviously, every team has to deal with injuries, and the Mets are doing that right now. Interesting thing is what does happen to Zach Wheeler, because it seemed like a foregone conclusion that Bartolo Colon would step into the bullpen when Wheeler was healthy. But Bartolo Colon's been pretty good. You would think, I mean, we're still a month away, and Bartolo's had a way in the past of fading later in season, so maybe that presents itself and it's easy, but
maybe it'll be Matt Harvey.
Yeah, right. Like, these things tend to resolve themselves, as we always talk about. Like, what are we going to do? Like, these are pitchers. Pitchers break down. I don't mean to scare Mets fans in that, but pitchers break down. They'll find a spot for Wheeler when he's back, and you're right. Right now, if you to continue what we're talking about now, Harvey's the guy that you worry.
It's going to be Harvey. It's not going to be Syndergaard. It's not going to be Matz. It's not going to be DeGrom. You know, Colon, you're right. Like, we'll see what happens with him, but if Harvey doesn't get himself right, that's the guy I look at.
But of course, if Harvey is continuing to struggle like he is now for the next month,
he won't make it that far.
That's exactly right.
Quickly an out here in the bottom of the 8th as Pilecki gets out. J.P. Howell into the game for the Dodgers. As you look at Harvey in the Mets dugout tonight.
J.P. Howell's been around for really a long time. He came up as a starter with the Royals. I think he was on the Royals when Zach Greinke was there. Was successful for many years in the bullpen with Tampa Bay, and now with the Dodgers for a couple years. But he's sort of making it work with smoke and mirrors at this point. His strikeout percentage has dropped the last 3 years from 24 to 20 to 15, which is a big jump in the wrong direction each year. But he's still been successful, and I think he's been a guy that's actually been pretty reliable for the Dodgers for a while.
Definitely curious, going back to Harvey. Again, the last time we did a game, we're like, wow, are they even going to start him the next game? They started him again. He got hit hard again. How long can you go with him like that? We've talked a little bit about how he starts off well, or through the first time he starts to wear down. Is that part of not getting the slider over? Is that part of velocity? How much can you take from him? When do you have to really start making a decision about it?
Well, I think you just termed it perfectly, is making a decision. And I think he has been the one making the decision. You remember last year in the World Series, he wanted to go out and he talked Terry Collins into it.
Rather emphatic about it.
Didn't work out,
did not.
And then, they were talking maybe they wouldn't let him make that next start. And he's like, no, I want to pitch. Like, this is what I want to do. Hasn't worked out. I think at some point you got to take the decision away from him and say, look, we respect that, you're a warrior and you want to get out there. But best for you and best for us, maybe it's time to take a breather, get your head right. We can call it a shoulder soreness or whatever you want. And then, come back stronger. I think that's what they have to do.
There's a reason his title is New York City Bureau Chief, not Manager.
There's this quick strikeout from Howell, so he sits down Campbell after getting Plawecki. And here's a look at some numbers for Matt Harvey.
And that's a big flash of warning sign.
Yeah. Now, it should be noted that pretty much every pitcher gets worse as you go through.
But that's huge.
Not to this extent. Right. And sometimes it's into the fourth time. That's, an OPS of 1326. Nobody can hit like that. That's a big problem.
That's Barry Bonds, the third time he did.
So here's a look at Ty Kelly. We talked about him a little bit earlier. Pinch hitting here. He's one of the few Mets who had actually faced Julio Urias back in the minor leagues. Won't get to face him tonight, but he's in there against J.P. Howell in the 8th.
Came from the Yankees organization. He was in the Yankees organization.
I don't think so. He was a 13th round pick by Baltimore.
Oh.
And he's bounced around Baltimore, Mariners, Cardinals, Blue Jays, Mets, all in the minors up until the other day.
0-2, quickly behind Kelly here against J.P. Howell. Kelly's still in search of that first major league hit, 0 for 4 so far in his career. Howell bounces one, tries to get him to chase. Yeah, Kelly, 27 years old, finally finds his way to the majors. I love those stories. I love the guys that bounce around in the minor leagues a little bit and finally maybe figure something out or find the right organization. That one's going to go back to Howell. He's going to have some trouble with it. Eventually he recovers and gets Kelly out at first. So that'll do it for the Mets here in the 8th. Howell joking around about that a little bit. Let's take another look as Kelly, I don't think he would have gotten a hit for that one anyway. That was going to be an error, but as he sends it back up the middle, Howell recovers again, falls down after the throw, and has a little smile, says something into the mitt.
There is nothing quite like the natural grace and ballet of the game of baseball. And we just saw that right there from JP.
Absolutely. There's no StatCast for the trips and fumbles yet.
Next. That's next on the list.
We'll
get there.
Yeah, route efficiency to the ground.
Yes.
Is what that is.
All right, let's take a look at the StatCast recap for tonight's game. We've had some great stuff throughout the game, and let's start things off with Jacob deGrom. This is your StatCast recap powered by Amazon Web Services. This was deGrom getting back the strike him out, throw him out back in the first inning.
That might have been a little high, but that was the deception we talked about that we saw. But this may have been the key hit. This was barely hit by Lagares.
Yeah, he goes out after that ball. I think that, it looks like the shortstop was shaded over a little bit, just out of the reach. Game might change entirely if he gets to the ball.
And this is what we love about Yasiel Puig. Sees the ball drop in, and he's running wild, and he goes first to third on a bloop to right field.
And I love that train wreck of a slide he had right there, too.
That is pure baseball entertainment start to finish.
Back to Lagares. He hit a home run in this game, but he roped this one as well to left field as Lagares has had a big day. How about David Wright, 104.9 on the exit velocity on his third homer in 3 games.
2006, David Wright, right there.
And here's Lagares again, continuing his big day. He goes oppo. That was the final run of this one so far as the Mets went up 5-1. And that's where we are right now. 5-1, the Mets in front. So we head to the top of the 9th. Last chance for the Dodgers. And as expected, or non-save situation, but Jarius Familia is in the game for the Mets.
Good luck hitting him because I think somehow Familia doesn't really get enough credit for what he's become. Look at this. Highest average sinker velocity. Obviously Syndergaard, right? So Familia is the hardest throwing reliever And 96 miles an hour for a ball that sinks, and he's got that split finger. He is essentially unhittable when he wants to be, when he's not throwing the quick pitch, which he did last year in the World Series, and we saw what happened with that ball.
You're watching MLB Plus, presented by T-Mobile. As the Mets try to close things out here, they turn to their closer.
You talk about that quick pitch, like, that's almost not trusting what you can do. There's no reason for him to do that. When you're able to pitch like Familia is, you don't need trickery.
Don't screw around. Like,
just go get it.
Throw your pitch.
He'll face Adrian Gonzalez, Howie Kendrick, and Jock Peterson here in the ninth. Gonzalez 1 for 3, has a strikeout, ground out. He singled back in the fourth. So you see the defensive alignment against Adrian Gonzalez. Is that a little bit less of a shift than you would see sometimes against?
He's been pulling the ball over so much that like it's really, you don't even need to shift the shortstop as much as you need to just have the second baseman over there.
Familia misses low, 1-1.
Every once in a while he'll dip in that 88-mile-an-hour slider, but for the most part it's hard for him.
.95 on the inner half, 1-2. T-Mobile's greater coverage camera continues to give us great shots of this game, and as we peer in on Jeurys Familia, getting the sign from his catcher. Gonzalez goes the other way, and he'll drop that one in for a base hit. It's the closer in the non-save situation, right? You always get a little nervous.
You know, we can talk all day about the inefficient use of closers and relievers in that regard, but you know, these guys are creatures of habit, and there's, you know, a 4-run lead is essentially just as important to save as a 3-run lead, but for whatever reason, you do see, at least anecdotally speaking, these guys tend to struggle. Trevor Rosenthal in St. Louis is kind of infamous for having this problem of always having trouble when the getting an inning of work always ends up hurting them.
Supposed to give him that nice, easy, low-stress inning of work, not to get 2 guys on.
Yeah, it always ends up stressful.
Yep. So much, I think more than other pitchers, a lot of closers maybe just feed off the adrenaline a little more than other guys. And there's maybe that little less tick of adrenaline when you look up and you're up 4 runs.
Which is strange. I mean, they should stop doing that. Like, to be clear about this, like, it is wrong that they're doing it. That there would reaction. The idea that the victory caused just as much if with the 4-run lead as it does in 3, regardless of what it might do for your stats.
Talked to Bill Chastain, our Rays writer, a bunch this year about Alex Colomé, who's been thrown into that role in Tampa Bay, and he's actually talked about it, the fact that he gets so much more fired up when he comes in the ninth, and he just loves being the closer. Probably not going to continue once Boxberger's healthy, but he's enjoying it while
he's
Is that going to stay fair? It absolutely is.
The right idea by Wright, but
that's when Wright should have pulled one of those get down on the ground and try to blow it foul. That's always a great highlight from the 80s. All of a sudden, time runs on deck.
We haven't seen the ball hit real hard. I mean, Gonzalez kind of slapped one into left field, and then there's that. And suddenly there's 2 on with nobody out, as all David Wright can do is pick the ball up and flip it back to his closer. So here's Jock Peterson, and suddenly Dodgers have something going here in the ninth.
A scorching 70-mile-an-hour ball to third base, but right into the ground.
What's the launch angle on that?
Negative 85.
Negative 85. He basically dropped it.
Comes back with the fastball to Peterson, gets ahead. So back to what you guys were saying, you don't want to see a quick pitch here?
Yeah, I think that's your
off
stuff.
The table.
Trust your stuff. He's not been hit hard. No. Like, this is not him getting knocked down. But that, of course, this is what you see is, we saw this with Urias as well. If you So he wasn't really getting hit that hard either, but it can get you off the track and get you messed up, and that's what you have to avoid from Familia here. Pretty good right there.
You come back with a pitch like that, you're throwing, 96, 96, and then all of a sudden, 87 slider, and it dips. I mean, I don't know how anybody hits anybody.
He's way ahead of Peterson. He can use a strikeout here. Familia's ready. Oh, and he dips one again.
You're right. I have no idea how a human being's supposed to hit that pitch.
Ridiculous. Jock Peterson just kind of tip your cap to him at that point. Head back to the dugout. One away here for the Dodgers in the ninth.
It is funny, we were talking about how closers sometimes pitch differently in non-safe situations. Familia, his ERA is about the same. He gives up a few more runs, but mostly it's the walks. Look at that strikeout to walk ratio with non-safe, as if like he just needs to make it more interesting for himself. It's not like he's getting hit that much harder. He's just putting more guys on.
Now, I'd be interested to know how much of that came when he first came to the big leagues and hadn't graduated to that job. Maybe he's still a little wilder as a younger pitcher. I'm not saying I know that to be true, but I think it'd be interesting.
Here's another look at that strikeout and that filthy pitch to Jock Peterson.
If you have that pitch, why would you ever quit this?
Exactly right. You don't need to mess with your stuff. Because when he did, he got his spin rate all out of whack, and the ball stayed up, and then Alex Cora destroyed it.
So you think Yasiel Puig can lay off that pitch?
Well,
that was fastball.
That was his pitch right there.
That was what he was waiting
That was
for.
the one, and he got it.
But that's a 97-mile-an-hour sinker. That's not right. That you can throw it that hard and still have it move.
That's a good thing he moved too. That move too, because Puig would have sent that. He was right on it speed-wise.
Might have hit it to the studio here.
Yes. We're in Boise, so that would be good.
Grounds that one through the left side. So another ball didn't seem to be hit super hard, but suddenly bases are loaded and the tying run is coming to the plate at Citi Field. Mets up 5-1 here in the ninth, one away, but here come the Dodgers.
We've seen Justin Turner hit that exact same ball twice tonight, and I believe both times it's turned into a double play. Puig did it, just perfectly positioned it, and it's a big base hit.
So Grandal will bat with the bases juiced as we take another look. Just rolls it through the left side. Familia's going to take a little moment here, gather himself. Adjust the shoes. This is a veteran, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You take your minute, fix the shoe that didn't need to be fixed, retie the laces after you untied them, get yourself a little extra time, and then get back on the rubber.
I will say I did not expect to be seeing the tying run at the plate in the ninth inning here.
No. It's Adrian Gonzalez at third, Howie Kendrick at second, and Yasiel Puig over at first. Grandal's the batter, and he'll take ball one.
Even overthrowing that pitch a little bit.
Familia has not allowed more than one run in any appearance this year.
Here's another look at your...
Not even thinking about
Come on. Here's another look at your T-Mobile Greater Coverage Cam from the first base side. As Familia tries to escape the jam that he's created here in the ninth. Bounces that one.
So assuming Grandal doesn't ground into a game-ending double play here, which is eminently possible, the Dodgers only have 2 men left on the bench because they've got a short bench now with the extra pitcher, and they've already used Hernandez and Crawford, so it's really A.J. Ellis, backup catcher, and Trace Thompson.
Trace Thompson, who
high strike.
Yeah,
that is a high strike.
But he'll take it, and it's 2-2. Trace Thompson's been obviously one of their better hitters this year.
Yeah, Familia didn't even really throw that ball right. I don't think he went for it to get that high, and I think he was as surprised as anyone to get the strike.
You usually don't throw a slider at the top of the zone like that.
Two-two pitch coming from Familia.
He was just daring to call that strike.
So the count's full. One away here in the ninth.
Looks like more of a strike than the other one did.
Yep. Just outside, maybe an inch off. That one well inside, and he'll walk in a run. So Grandal heads down to first. Run comes in, and it's a 5-2 ball game, and now your tying run aboard. And this always puts the manager in a tricky situation because you can't pull the closer, right? All right, we saw ball 4 was obviously inside. Ball 3 a little closer. Here's another look at that one. I think he was off the plate a little bit.
I think that was a little long.
Yep.
But it's funny that pitch before, technically speaking, he probably should have walked him a pitch earlier because he got an extra strike in that bat that he shouldn't have.
I'd say it all evens out in the end. So 5-2. Jubal Cabrera comes in, a little pep talk for Familia.
I have to say, if you're the Dodgers and if you're holding Trace Thompson for one at bat tonight, this is a pretty good time to have it. This is lots of guys to deploy here.
Trace Thompson was part of the Todd Frazier three-way trade with the White Sox, the Dodgers, and the Reds. And every Dodger fan, when they found out the Dodgers were involved in the Todd Frazier deal and didn't come away with Todd Frazier, where they were horrified. But Justin Turner had actually been better than Todd Frazier. Justin Turner coming off the knee injury couldn't shift over to second base. And so far this year, Trace Thompson has out-hit Todd Frazier.
Yeah, 282, 7 homers. Doesn't have the power, obviously, but overall, certainly. He's driven in 19 for this team. And we can't have him in the game without mentioning that his brother Clay plays for the Golden State Warriors. Right?
That's an NBA team, Mike.
Yeah, so I'm told.
That's in there for a strike. So 1-1 the count to Thompson.
Sorry, NBA is basketball.
And basketball is...
It's orange.
Oh, okay.
Well, another thing, we'll talk. We got plenty.
It's what Mark Hendrickson did in his
yeah. It's that other thing that Danny Ainge did.
Whoa, that's the pitch you wanted.
Yeah.
That was his pitch. Got it up. Thompson wanted to hit that one all the way back to LA. When you got a sinker that's in the top of the zone, that's not necessarily what you want, no matter how hard you throw it.
And it's barely a sinker, really, when it's that.
So he's ahead 1-2 now, and Familia can really use a strikeout here with 1 out, bases loaded. Already a run in for the Dodgers. And he gets him. 98.
Oh, that is an unfair pitch.
That's basically a, here's what I have. See what you can do.
And guess who's up? Bases loaded. You couldn't draw this up any better, right?
I mean, clearly this is the time where you send your message pitch. I don't think there's any question. Now you have to let Chase Utley know.
You couldn't write the script any better. Chase Utley at the plate, bases loaded. He represents the go-ahead run here, and the Mets fans are going to let him know how they feel again tonight. We won't repeat. And he gets a hold of it, sends it into the gap, right center field. That's going to roll to the wall, and Chase Utley burning the Mets yet again as he rolls into second. They'll throw it home, and we are all tied up. It's a 3-run double for Chase Utley. He ends up on third base, 5-5. And it all comes apart for J. Reese Familia here in the ninth.
My two reactions are Chase Utley will never set foot in New York again, and I hope that you guys are comfortable. Wow. Exactly like you said, you couldn't draw it up better. And Chase Utley has been hitting like Chase Utley. Chase Utley has been one of the best players in baseball for a decade, and here he is crushing the Mets right here.
So a rough go for Familia here. He allows 4 runs here in the 9th. And here's Corey Seager. Seager tonight singles in his last 2 at-bats.
Forget the tie game now. You got to make sure they don't fall behind here. They got Kinley. They're gonna have him up real quick.
Well, then we're going to get deep into the idea of using your closer in a tie game on the road. I'm sure we have thoughts.
And he gets that over for strike 1. So 1-1.
You figure Chase Utley at this point should have one of those like Raleigh Fingers mustaches that is just twirling like the evil villain on third base.
Ms. Met is tied to a train track somewhere.
That one's fouled off, so 1-2. Here's another look at Chase Utley into the gap in right center field. And that one will roll.
I feel like I've seen Chase Utley do that so many times in his career. That's his sweet spot.
And then taking the extra base, too.
Grandal looking
pleased.
Yeah, pleased and not pretty sliding into home. That one's straight back.
So now we get to talk about Jeurys Familia in a non-safe situation. Huh? It's exactly as you said it would be.
We should have never brought that up.
We should have never brought that up. It's really all our fault.
That's up and in. 2-2 the count to Seager.
Well, I've been saying for a while, we did, I think, 3 consecutive Yankees-Red Sox games and 4 Yankee games in a row, and all of them went smoothly and quickly, and I'm like, we have earned, whenever our comeuppance comes, we've earned it.
Oh, that's 17 just a week ago.
Yeah.
He misses with that. 3-2.
And now you're get your guys some kind of non-save situation is hey, if you have a save situation tomorrow, you don't have your closer. It's 31 pitches.
This is why you managers, right? Can answer all those questions after the game. You hope it comes after a victory if you're Terry Collins. As we head to the bottom of the 9th inning, we are going to take a look at Chase Utley's double, the big double, and that tied this one up in the 9th. Here's your StatCast replay, powered by Amazon Web Services, as Chase Utley does more damage against the New York Mets here in the 9th inning. He gets to Jeurys Familia. Bases loaded, the stage was set, and Chase Utley certainly coming through with the bases loaded. That big double, he put it in a perfect spot. He drilled it just like we kind of thought he might.
That is what Chase Utley is built for. To hit balls into the gap, especially against the Mets in big spots.
He feeds off their nature.
He walked in the first. He actually drove in their first run, too, in the 3rd with that sac fly. Walked again in the 5th, and then he struck out. But he's been on base all night long, pretty much, despite the constant cheering on from the Mets faithful at Citi Field. As we head to the bottom of the 9th, suddenly a half inning that the Mets didn't think they would see tonight. They'll try to win the game. Let's take a look at that StatCast replay powered by Amazon Web Services. Here's Chase Utley.
102 miles off the bat. And, we're going to talk about launch angle as well, but it's really about where he put it, right between the outfield. If that ball was to dead center or to right field, it's an out. He put it right in between them, and now look at it, ends up on 3rd.
A lot of it's being able to turn around, though. That pitch is coming in hot, but him hitting it right there. And you're right, this is the key thing, too. Watch him take this extra base. I know that is such a veteran kind of play to do, to be able to take that play, see the way that's going, and move up there. And now, here we are at bottom of the 9th. This game's tied.
And really, that all comes back to that Puig ground ball. It was a simple ground ball to shortstop, essentially. In the 5.5 hole, as you call it, between short and 3rd. That ball's a couple feet to the left, a couple feet to the right, out. Game is essentially over, but he gets a base hit on that, and now we're all tied up. And who is not pitching right now? Kenley Jansen is not pitching right now. Pedro Baez, I think, is going to be coming into this game. What do you think? Using your closer or not using your closer on the road in a tie game?
I feel like you've got top of the order coming up here. You've come all the way back here. To come all the way back from this and then lose in the bottom of the ninth, I think if you get a chance to keep this game tied, I think you play the closer.
I always think you play the closer because what happens is maybe you get a walk-off here against a lesser pitcher. You don't ever want to lose the game with your best pitcher sitting and watching. I always go back to the Braves-Dodgers NLDS from a couple years ago with that famous image of Craig Kimbrell sitting in the bullpen with his hands on his hips watching David Carpenter blow the series. You know, this is something every manager does. They always do it because they don't want to end up with a lead later in the game and then have their closer available. But you have to get to that point first.
I feel like there is a little bit of difference in the postseason in certain ways that I agree with you that Jansen should be in now, but in the postseason, it's even more infuriating because then there is no.
Well, especially because you get more days off too.
Exactly.
And at this point, you shouldn't be thinking about the 10th inning, 11th inning. Your only goal right now is how do I get these next 3 outs without losing the game?
Because everybody talks in baseball about the stopper inning. You have the big rally. You need to come out that next half inning and shut it down, the shutdown inning. And who better to call upon in that shutdown inning than your closer?
You just need to extend the game. You just need to get your offense back up. And Pedro Baez, who
no slouch.
Yes. No, is a little underrated, I think, actually. But he's not Kenley Jansen because nobody's Kenley Jansen. Pedro Baez throws extremely hard. Oh my God!
And there it goes deep to right down the foul line. Will it stay fair? Is the only question, and it is. Curtis Granderson makes Mike Petriello look like a genius as he takes Pedro Baez deep and gone down the foul line. And the Mets, despite giving up 4 runs in the top of the ninth, they come back and walk it off in the bottom of the frame. The Mets win it 6-5.
I'm looking very closely for that shot of Jansen in the dugout. That's what I want to see right now. Good call. Use the closer.
Well, we thought we might be settling in for a while, but instead it's one batter in the bottom of the ninth inning as Curtis Granderson takes care of business. Solo shot just inside that foul pole to right. And the Mets win this one 6-5. And who gets the win? Jerry's familiar.
I'm without words. I'm without words right now.
For what it's worth, that win with the Nationals lost to the Cardinals earlier tonight, we are now tied for first place in the National League.
There we go, all tied up. Here's another look at the home run coming from Curtis Granderson.
Baez knew it the minute he swung it.
Unbelievable.
The only question was, would it stay fair? But from that angle, it was pretty clearly fair the whole way.
That's Curtis Granderson's first home run first walk-off home run since 2005 versus the ghost of Cliff Pulley.
Well, so you know, Reyes was 7 when that happened, so.
The quick math, here's another look. Baez put the glove up in the air. He may have known it right when the ball left his fingers.
I think it's fair to say that that's probably not a ball you hit off Jansen. You think it's a fair assessment?
I don't think anything about that would happen off Kenley Jansen. I really hope, we cut a lot of clips and highlights from these shows, and I really hope you and I talking about putting the closer in literally before that swing happened is like our promoted clip.
That's the one we'll remember us for.
What a finish at Citi Field. What a start to a big weekend for the Mets. They'll be celebrating the 86 team all weekend, but don't forget about this 2016 team that's back even first place in the NL East with the Nationals thanks to that shot by Curtis Granderson. There's the view from the Apple in center field. Up in the air thanks to the home run by Curtis Granderson. It's been a good one, a real good game. I don't know if it ever went the way we thought it might from the start by Julio Urias. I said it right all day.
I've completely forgotten he pitched at this point.
Julio Urias got off to the rough start, and then we didn't think that would happen, and then the Dodgers rally in the ninth, and then lo and behold, Curtis Granderson the walk-off in the bottom of the ninth. So 6-5 is your final. It was fun. It was exciting. And like I said, it never went the way we kind of thought it would.
I mean, the idea that you would bring in Familia, who looked, by the way, alternatively, terrific. There were some pitches you're like, how in the world is anyone going to hit him? But then to have the game tied up with Utley, of all people, to have him come tied up after turning, he's terrific all game today. But he even slid into second base correctly. Yes. He had like a perfect game at Citi Field for him to tie it up that way. And then, as we said, you don't put the closer in. You put in Baez, who's not a terrible pitcher, but he threw a pitch that even the minute he knew he threw it, he knew it was gone.
Three takeaways for me. Number one, Jake DeGrom, really impressive, and that's a really nice sign for the Mets. Number two, Urias, after that tough start, kind of pulled it back together, and I think he can walk away with this feeling good. A lot of positives from this. And number three, always put in the closer in a tie game. Always put in a closer in a tie game, because this is what happens. He never got to pitch. He's the best, not the best. He's one of the best closers in baseball, and he had as much impact on this game as the three of us did.
Look at how many relievers the Dodgers used this game. They had to use so many relievers this game, and they didn't use the best one.
As the fans head to the 7 train with smiles on their faces at Citi Field, we head back to the ballpark and check in with